Bada bing, bada boom.
I'm just gonna share this with my server too.
All right, we should be live.
I tuned in a little bit last time, and I don't know. There was just like a really, I don't know. I just started like laughing like the moment I turned in, because you asked someone like, well, why don't you believe in like Zeus or Poseidon? And his answer was like, well, because I don't like them. What a really funny reason to not believe something.
Honestly, it's actually a good reason. It's a better reason than most that we hear.
Yeah, like why do you why do you think physicalism is true? Well, I just don't like non-physicalism.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that is what I say about idealism.
I think it's a verbal dispute.
Can you imagine if we said that about a god? If someone's, well, why don't you believe in God? We're like, well, I don't like the idea of God. They'd lose their mind.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, so you do acknowledge that he exists, and you're traumatized, you were turned away from the religion by, something, yeah.
All right, well, we got some people in the...
Yeah, we got a bunch of heathens coming in, and Joanna, I don't think we have mods set up on this account yet. This is our first live stream with this account. Let me see if I can mod you up here.
You're telling me the Fire and Blitz's green screen was, the Fire and Blitz's background was green screen the whole time.
All right, Joanna,
True.
You are now a mod, and Ems, let me get you modded up here, my man. Give me a second. All right, Ems is now a moderator. Fantastic. I think I see Gigawatts in here. Good to see you, Gigawatts. Good to see you guys. We're just getting this stream open. This is our first stream using the Unapologetic actual account, because the way TikTok works, you have to wait like 60 days or some nonsense before it'll let you actually stream on the account. But we're here. We're ready to rock and roll. We're live on the YouTube as well. Saladin says that the notification from YouTube woke them up from their slumber today to watch the stream. Thank you so much, Saladin. I appreciate that.
Yeah, make sure you're demolishing that like button, double tapping on that screen.
You have to smash the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, by the way.
True. Yeah, if you're watching this in the future, especially, drop that like button and subscribe. These words will live on forever, and you should do that while we wait for the very first guest.
Oh, you're moving something around.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where to put the super chat bubble, because if I put it in like over the call in disagree link in description, then it goofs it, because on the TikTok
but that
stream,
wasn't even a super chat. That was just a normal chat.
Well, yeah, I need to see it on the screen to move it.
Oh, okay.
Easier that way.
But there is a super chat.
Yeah. Judas, thank you so much. I'm happy to be back.
Harp says just put it over Ian.
That's okay. I can accept this. It's a sacrifice.
Mean. Athene, welcome in. Good to see you.
Athene mentioned.
I don't know who this Ethian guy is. All I know is chair guy.
Oh yeah, he's chair guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's also he has other claims to fame, right? He's also like Kretsch's guy.
True.
Oh yeah, that's true. Why are you getting bigger, Justin?
Well, I'm always zoomed out, and because on this stream we got the small boxes, my head is already tiny, so I don't want to I gotta blow it up like a mega mind,
That's a hostile takeover. Soon Justin will control the entire screen.
Big glowing orb.
Really close to the camera, like an extreme close-up. Like, why do you think God isn't real?
Interrogation. Thomas, thank you for the $2.99 over Venmo already. We barely got the stream started. We appreciate that, Kedrick Thomas.
Ian, you got that dark side lighting. You're like Two-Face.
Maybe I gotta close my blinds.
You gotta go like this every once in a while, and then like this, and then you just gotta like smile when you're like this and frown when you're like this.
That was the wrong side. Hold on.
Welcome in, Astronova. Good to see you, buddy.
Nice.
We got a bunch of the usual suspects in here. We got a real super chat too, actually. Thank you so much, Marduk. Good to see you, good buddy. Thank you for the $5 super thanks.
As opposed to a fake super chat?
That was a real one. It's a real deal.
Justice for Judas, man. What? I think Judas's super chat was just as real.
Super real. We're gonna have an issue here because we don't. This TikTok account isn't getting sent out as much.
Oh, of
that's
course
true.
Not. Yeah. Well, that's why we needed Eon to join up as a guest.
I know. Damn. Is there a workaround? I don't know if there's a workaround. I'm not sure how to.
I don't think you can join from the browser.
Can't.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You can?
You cannot. Not yet.
That's genuinely so messed up.
I know. That does bring up a good point, though, because the people that are in here are mostly going to be friendlies to the channel rather than opposition.
True.
So,
True. I guess like a potential solution to that, you could maybe end the TikTok stream, just the TikTok stream, and then restart it on like your account.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, give me a second. I'll restart it on my account, and we'll keep rolling that way. Because TikTok's going to get killed anyways.
Then
yeah.
we could join with the stream account.
Right. Now let me log in on the personal account.
Hey, you know what song turns 30 this year?
No, which one?
Oh, there's so many. Mr. Bombastic turns 30 this
shit.
year.
Only matter to. I'm praying so hard to Doug right now that of the horrible music from my era that's coming back now that they refuse to bring back Chumbawamba.
No, it's a national treasure.
Gosh.
Chumbawamba and Nickelback, national treasures.
No.
Although Nickelback's Canadian, so, 25% tariff
We're going to send
on
them back.
Nickelback albums.
Yeah, speaking of tariffs, I saw the round of tariffs that went in. Are they going to be doing more, or is this the tip of the iceberg?
Who knows? I mean, it's chaotic, so they're just kind of doing whatever. I don't know. I think there's no predicting this crazy train.
There's a concept of a plan.
Yeah, it really does feel like there's a concept of a plan. Yeah, I think my favorite actions are the ones that are like basically nothing, but it's like an idea. It's like the executive orders that are just like an ideological statement, like trying to like mandate definitions.
Or changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah. Bro, eggs must be like fucking free if this is the shit we're worried about.
Okay, I've got the stream open on TikTok using my main account.
Oh, we got 2 more super chats from 321 Baitor and Judas again. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 321 Biter, thank you for the super chat. There's 3 horsemen of Dougpocalypse. Cheers from UK. Well, cheers all the way on the other side of the pond. We appreciate the super chat. And good morning in our time zone. Judas, thank you for the $2 super chat. Judas says, no, don't do it to me. I got to read. I get knocked down. I won't sing it. I get knocked down, and then I super chat again. Big W for the Chumbawamba chat. Oh boy.
I didn't even get it until you started singing it.
It's gonna be a day, guys. It's gonna be a day. I've got
the
Unapologetic
Hopefully
show
a decent one.
this morning, and then AXP, and then I think I'm gonna do a Q&A after AXP. But
That's a hell
cool.
of a day.
when are you guys getting on AXP? You should be scheduled soon.
Oh, well, we have to work our way up, right? Not all of us have the connections that you have.
Here's the thing. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. Two people at AXP at the same time went to the producer and was like, "Hey, there's this guy. You got to get him on your show." And they're like, "Okay, we'll throw him on like Truth Wanted or whatever." And they contacted me, and I was like, I can't. The Friday, like I stream 3 nights a week, and I can't end my Friday night stream to join your guys' stream, or it was Monday, I forget. But and so the only day I have available is like the Sunday, and they're like, well, we'll discuss it, and then they discussed it, and I think J Mike and SR pushed him over the edge. It was like, no, just bring him on. So I got really lucky because they just vouched for me. They just blindsided. Put me in there, said, well, hopefully he doesn't sink.
That's good.
Well, I mean,
Damn.
you have experience, right?
No, I wasn't playing hardball like you were.
I wasn't even playing hardball. I was just kind of like, well, if it's going to happen, this is really the only day I can make it happen because I do have to prioritize my main streaming days if I'm going to like go back to school and get my PhD done. So got to prioritize my content
2 more
creation.
super chats.
What are you getting your PhD in?
It's going to be in a seriology.
Nerdology.
Yeah, it really is. It'll be similar to what Josh Bowen does. It'll be ancient Near Eastern studies. So I'll be taking more Akkadian, and then I'll be doing probably Egyptian. If I get time, I might do something fun like Ugaritic. But
Dude casually just wants to learn all the Near East ancient languages.
That's the goal. Learn them all.
Read the Epic of Gilgamesh in the original cuneiform.
Oh, absolutely. That's how they teach you. That's like the starting point, right? Stinky Athene changed his name and is now Inception chatting the live. Athene with Super Chat says, Athene with Super Chat says, Athene with Super Chat. And I think there's a message here that I might not understand, guys.
Nope.
No. Oh, Marduk, don't do it to me. Well, we appreciate the Super Chat, Marduk, but we're pissing the morning away, not the night away right now.
So I guess we're just waiting for guests. So if anybody wants to join, you can join. You cannot join through TikTok. You have
This is
to
like a
join.
perfect opportunity to fix my lighting.
Yeah, you
Right.
should do that. You have to join through the link in the on the screen somewhere that way. I don't know, somewhere over here.
That's
it's
right.
a tiny URL. It'll take you to Video Ninja, and then you can join.
That's right,
You have
guys.
to go there. Just type it in or copy it. It's very easy to remember.
Yeah, share this link out. Share the link out with all of your favorite YouTube apologists. Just send them over here. Let them rage out on the stream if they don't have enough courage to join the stream.
Gen X Stream, thank you for the $5. Was watching Manar achieve peak Dunning-Kruger and noticed this in my side list. What a great way to start my morning. Well, welcome.
Listen, the Minar reports crash out. It might be my favorite stream ever. That was
I have no idea who
hands
that
down
is.
the best. There was a
Who is
guy who
Minar?
came on my stream who thinks he is the king debater, and he spent an hour losing his mind. Not just with me, but I was still using the Streamlabs guest queue, and in the Streamlabs guest queue, they can like talk to each other while they're in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like cursing out the guest queue and just going manic on the whole room for an hour. And here's the crazy thing is this guy was live streaming the whole thing on his end at the same time. So I just muted him. I muted him and threw him in the background and started talking to other guests because like, well, I'm just going to watch him crash out on screen for an hour while I'm talking to other people. But after the show, I went and I grabbed his video and I did a mashup with my video. I just posted it last night. So now everyone can see the full 1 hour crash out of him threatening
Beautiful.
to, ramrod people's mothers and, pee on their beds. And the whole thing's crazy. Also, Kin Sale, thank you for the $5 super thanks. We really appreciate it. We should have a guest up here soon. Adam Helgeson, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, you three are like therapy for me. I was so deep into Christianity, and listening to all three of you has been such a comfort to me in my deconstruction process. I really appreciate that. What do you think, Blitz? Because you deconstructed too, right?
No, it wasn't really a process for me. I was like, raised Jewish, right? I did a bar mitzvah, but it was just like a thing that I did because my mom expected me to. Like, it was never like a thing that I believed, and I just didn't buy into it. It was just, So like, I don't even understand. Like, I mean, I intellectually know what deconstruction is, but like, I've never experienced that, and my wife never experienced that. So like, yeah, I understand it's hard for y'all. I just cannot empathize. Well, I can empathize. I cannot sympathize.
Right. Yeah, I was the stubborn guy that was like a true believer, and it was hard for me deconstructing because you cling on to every little thing that you can before you finally have to give up. You know what I mean? It's like they have to take your toys away one at a time before your toy box is empty, and you can look at it and say, "Oh shit, the thing's empty."
That's really interesting. I mean, I only hopped in for like the last like couple of words, but I think I got like the gist of that, and that speaks to like a fundamental part of like human neurocognition. There's this concept in, I think it's either in neuroscience or cognitive science, called cognitive inertia, which is basically that like our we don't like to change our minds unless we really really have to. There's like neurological reasons. Like after we come to a decision, we tend to like value like input evidence as being much less. There's like psychological reasons, like we have strong confirmation bias. There's sociological reasons that we have we build like our identities around these beliefs, and if you give up these beliefs, then like who are you? You have nothing, and that can be really really scary. Like it's terrifying. And then there's, for people who get far enough into it, there are like economic reasons to never change your mind, where this might literally be your source of income.
Right? Yeah, for sure. I got a couple of friends that are in the ministry still yet, and they've basically deconstructed, but they're like, well, I'm here. Where else can I go?
Yeah.
I had a this is changing the topic, but I don't want to forget about it. I watched a debate with Luke Barnes against some other physicist that came out a few days ago. They were talking about fine-tuning. So if you had more to say about deconstruction, please do, but I'm telling you that so that I remember later.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll just tell you about it and get your thoughts on it.
We've got two people in... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, guys.
No, go for it.
Well, we got two people in our guest queue here, guys, on TikTok. Great. So not on YouTube. Guys, if you're in the guest queue on TikTok, we can't take you. We can only take... Because we're streaming this to multiple platforms, we can't take guests on TikTok because we're running through a third party. If you're watching this on TikTok, there's a link on the screen. It just says join as guest at tinyurl.com/UA guest. Just go ahead and throw that in your browser, and you'll be able to guest up onto the stream. You'll be on Twitch, on YouTube, and on TikTok. Everyone will be able to hear you. But this allows us to put you on all the streams without having to deal with like the TikTok studio barrier.
Yeah, so that's very true. Anyway, I'm going to tell you about a thought that I had regarding fine-tuning. This is not a novel thought, right? But I just don't know why I never bring it up. Namely, in principle, the universe could have life in many different ways. Perhaps you can't change the constants one at a time, but we know that there are ways that you can change the constants so that you change them in sync in some way so that you end up with life. So the question is we have to... The realization that I had is that there's fine-tuning under both worldviews, right? Because there's an infinity of possibilities that could lead to life in a theistic worldview as well. So it just doesn't explain why we have a life-permitting universe whatsoever, right? Like the probability is still zero because like if you require that if you have an infinitely large configuration space in both cases, because you can rescale things in an infinite number of different ways, in both, whether it's natural or supernatural. In both cases, you have probability approaching zero. So I just don't see how you get to this idea that certainly God would fine-tune the universe for life in this way, right? Just very weird.
Yeah.
My understanding is that as long as the probability of life emerging isn't zero, then it basically has to emerge if the universe is infinitely old in the past and in the future. Like it will eventually emerge. It just happens to be that we're experiencing it.
Well, yeah, the question is if you can arrange, in how many different ways can you arrange the constants of the universe in which life has a non-zero probability? Right. Oh, we have a guest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the guest's Muslim, but we'll see.
Well,
Well,
we'll
their
find
name is
out.
Jesus Fuel.
Yeah.
The name is interesting as well. We got Jesus Fuel with us. How you doing, Jesus Fuel? Jesus Fuel?
How about Jesus fuels your microphone?
Yeah, I don't think that Jesus. I see that your microphone is set to the iPhone mic.
Yeah, do
And I
we got
see
it now?
that
Y'all
you're...
can hear me?
Yes.
we're good
Yeah,
to
we
go
can hear
now.
you.
All right, bet.
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. I've talked to Blitz and Ian. How y'all doing?
Doing
How are
well.
you?
How about you?
Good. I'm here for constructive. I wanted to ask him what Bible verses that helped him deconstruct.
Well, you mean for me? There's a lot of Bible verses that help me deconstruct. I think the first verses that really powered my deconstruction was the major prophets. So I would say Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. When you read their prophecies in whole, it's pretty clear that they're talking about not Jesus. They're talking about a world that Jesus is claimed to have brought to the earth, but clearly isn't here. The prophecies that are applied to Jesus are fallaciously applied to him. And then when you read the rest of the prophets, it just gets worse from there. I think the second thing was probably like some of the scientific and historical errors in the Bible. Those are a little bit problematic because the New Testament treats the Old Testament like it's all true, it's all literal. So you can't really make it metaphorical when the New Testament authors think that it's all literal. I think one of the other problems in my deconstruction journey was like some of the weird moralistic issues with the Bible. So, for example, the God of the Bible is like obsessed with female virginity, but doesn't care one lick about male virginity. It's not even an issue, and women are basically
Because they
treated
were
like
all virgins.
that's right. That's right. Women are basically treated like property, and that to me was a bit problematic, but also crazy stuff too. Like maybe my favorite horrific law from the Old Testament is Deuteronomy 22, where God literally says that women should be stoned if they don't bleed on their wedding night, even though biologically we know that only about 45% of women bleed the first time they do the deed, which means half of those women being executed were actually innocent. But you might expect that for a man living in the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, but you wouldn't expect that for a god.
Okay, so I got written down Isaiah because I got pen and paper here. I got Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. These are prophecies that you believe haven't been fulfilled or you don't think will ever be fulfilled. What's your stance on these?
Well, a mixture of both. Like the New Testament says that parts of them were fulfilled when they clearly weren't. It also says that some of them were fulfilled in Jesus, but they clearly were actually fulfilled 700 years before Jesus. Like Isaiah chapter 7, if it was fulfilled 725 years before Jesus. So he couldn't have fulfilled Isaiah 7. But we've got other prophecies in Isaiah that will never get fulfilled. So, like, if you go to Isaiah 14, I believe, there's a prophecy against Babylon. Let me double check on that. Make sure we get the right one so I don't lead you astray. Yeah, Isaiah 14 is a prophecy against Babylon, talking about how the Israelites are going to take their captives captive and they're going to turn them into slaves. Because at the time Isaiah was writing this, or whoever was writing it, Babylon was basically on the rise and was punishing the Israelites by, deporting their population. And so the prophecy states that after Babylon falls, the Israelites are going to take them captive and they'll have to serve the Israelites, which never happened in history. And it actually never will happen because the Babylonians don't exist anymore. So there's no mechanism for this prophecy to ever come true.
Okay. And for Ezekiel and Daniel, so I got Isaiah chapter 7 and chapter 14 for Isaiah. I also wrote down Deuteronomy 22 in regards to...
And you may want to check out, just read Jeremiah chapter 31 to 33.
What chapters?
Yeah, Jeremiah 31 to 33. This is a chapter or a section of chapters where everyone thinks it's about Jesus, and it's clearly not when you read the whole thing in context.
And this is also a prophecy that will never happen?
Yeah, in my view, yeah, it'll never happen.
So we should, Jesus Fuel, we do appreciate you being here, but we should let you go because we do have a guest.
Okay.
Who is not a friendly, presumably, I think. So, but we do want to thank you for being here.
Of course. God bless y'all.
Yeah, it was good to hear from you, Jesus
All right.
Fuel. Cheers.
Take care.
W to Jesus Fuel for wanting to gain knowledge. That was my the starting of my process was just asking like, what is true in this book? Also, Dr. Rev, good to see you. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Says the urge to sing is just a whim away. Stop it! A whim away. Yeah, in the jungle. I'm aware of that song. Great, good pun. Good pun.
Yes, we should start the atheist tritat. Is Walter in? Do we have audio on Walter?
Yeah, I'll get him. I was just grabbing.
Also, by the way, there is somebody named True Investments who's who's watching on TikTok right now and really wants to join. Just type in tinyurl.com/UA guest. We're going to take guests one at a time. And so just hang out there and we'll bring you up when it's your turn.
Right.
And we can have a conversation. I know you want to talk about the transcendental argument, so.
And Kinsale, thank you for the $2 super chat. We appreciate that. And Tim, good to see you, Tim. Tim, thank you for the $2 super chat. It says, Hail Doug, the only true God, the rock of our salvation. And praise Doug, absolutely. We appreciate that super chat, Tim. All right, let's get our next guest. It looks like, let me see if I can read this name. The text is so small. And it's Walter. There we go. How you doing, Walter?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
I can hear
We
you.
can hear just fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Okay. I closed TikTok. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because it's the first time I. Okay.
You're good.
Okay. So very quickly, I only know Blitz out all of you. So my name is Walter. I'm a Catholic, and nothing. I just wanted from you to elaborate on the concept of real. I mean, why God isn't real? In what sense? In a materialistic perspective, or?
In like the existence sense, like God doesn't exist. Like of all the things that exist, God isn't one of them. And there's like a number of directions you can take it from. I obviously think the strongest argument against the Bible is like just reading the thing. You'll find like just horrific evil from a God who is said to be loving, like, you know, the time he said you could do slavery or the time he commanded genocide. These things are pretty definitive to me, at least.
Okay, but let's take away the Christian God. I mean, let's talk about the concept of God. I mean, okay, the Bible doesn't convince you, okay, 100%. But, I mean, as an entity, like it was contemplated by, I don't know, Plato, Socrates. I don't know. I'm Italian, so... And they had a pretty different conception. I get that, but the idea of a transcendental something, I mean, you know, a broader term than the Christian God. I mean, will you accept that as well, or dismiss?
So if what you're appealing to is what Plato and Socrates believed in, I mean, Plato and Socrates thought that the universe always existed. What they believed in was like a demiurge who crafted the universe out of materials that have always existed. So they didn't believe in like God in the sense that you believe in God. They believed in like a really powerful dude who worked with a universe that he didn't create that already existed. So I would just not classify the demiurge as God. And I guess my counter argument to the demiurge is that it just like kicks the can down the road. Like where did the demiurge come from?
I'm not very, I mean, educated on that, but out of all, I mean, Aristotle, Aristotle, I mean, was he the guy that said that he was the prime mover, of all things?
Aristotle
Something
also
like
thought that the universe always existed. This is Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle all believed in the same conception of God.
Okay. But do you believe that ideas are real, that numbers are real, mathematics is real, music
real in
is real?
Like a Platonic sense, no. I think that numbers are categories that we create, that our mind is able to pick out certain objects, and then we can form a count of these objects. So numbers exist in our mind, but then we impose these numbers onto reality. It's not like reality is like checking to make sure that it's in line with like the correct number of numbers.
Okay. But is thinking, is it real for you?
Yeah, right? Like the electrical signals that produce thought certainly is real. Yeah, of course.
But do we have proofs about this? I mean, is it only neurons activity? I mean, it's not implied that if there are neurons or neurons activity, there is a thought. I mean, there are neurons in the heart, but I don't hear any voices from the heart. I mean, I don't know if...
What we do know is that neurons, or some similar substrate, like transistors or something like that, is at least necessary for thought.
Okay.
Meaning if you shut off the neurons, the thought goes away.
Yeah, that's okay. But do we know, do we have some other proof to say that thoughts are simply, electrical charges that go in networks? I mean, there are hard proofs of this.
Well, what we have is I personally ascribe to Bayesian epistemology, and if we could all get Bayesed for just a second, I think that all of the evidence, Bayesed and oppipilled, I think that the evidence that we have over and over again is consistent with the hypothesis that thoughts literally are just electrical impulses. All of the evidence is consistent with it. That's why when you change the electrical impulses, the thoughts also change. When Phineas Gage got the pipe lodged through his skull, his thoughts changed because the electrical impulses changed. When you take like a melatonin gummy, your thoughts change. Your brain becomes
melatonin.
Sleepier.
Yeah, but that's like messing up with the hardware. I mean, if I open my computer and I whack it with a hammer, it surely will begin to behave differently. So, is the software real? Again,
I'm not sure I understand the distinction here between software and hardware. What would the software in this analogy be?
The software is basically it's electrical charges in its physical presence in the
analogy. I think the analogy here is that the software is the mind, and the hardware is the neurons.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
I'm inclined to just believe in like some either reductive or eliminative physicalism, which would just hold that all of these can probably just be reduced to physical states.
Probably, but it's more akin to a belief, Well,
of course it's a belief, but it's a belief with evidence, right? That's the distinction, is that there's evidence for this belief, but what's the evidence that thoughts are anything other than this?
Yeah, it's a plausible belief. Yeah, understand. Okay.
It's also not the reason why I believe atheism, by the way, right? Like, this saying like, well, it's plausible, like that might work if the reason why I think atheism is true is just because I think physicalism is true, but that's not the case, right? I think atheism is true probably because of the problem of evil.
Yeah. But like music, beauty, it gets very abstract, The
what about ugliness?
Beauty in aesthetic.
Platonic ugliness.
Ugliness is contemplated in aesthetic. I mean, it's the opposite. But I mean, the mind is we can say it's electrical signal, but I don't know. It's very unsatisfactory. It's very. Where does it come from? Why it is there? Why it
Where did
is
God come
able
from, and
to
why is he there?
contemplate- Yeah, but I mean, the mind itself that is able to contemplate even things that aren't real. I mean, we have mathematics. We model physics around mathematics, if I'm right. Yeah, but the mathematics sometimes comes first before physics, and mathematics allows to interpret nature's phenomena. So where we do get that, I mean, it's pretty tricky, at least.
It's not so surprising though, because essentially what's happened is that we have this mathematics, and the mathematics really, I mean, like, if you go back hundreds of years, the mathematics was really developed to do physics. And so we've developed a set of rules, intuitions, theorems, axioms, whatever, that we use to do mathematics. And so just by the fact that this mathematics we've developed has already been so good at describing the universe, it's entirely possible that the rules that we've come up with actually do describe the universe in a nice way. We just haven't understood those full rules. So as we do more further investigations into mathematics, we can use that to discover things about how the universe actually is. It's perhaps not so surprising when you think of it that way. It would be like saying
if you think it that way,
it would be like saying that games of chess are the things that we see in the universe. If you know the rules of chess, you might not know all of the possible games, but by playing chess, by doing the mathematics, you can figure out more stuff about the games of chess without actually actually like watching any. You can just do it yourself.
Okay, but I am very uneducated on this, so I'm not at your level. But what do you think? For example, fractals. The fractals number, the fractals. I think I read that they were basically discovered when they messed up with an equation with irreal numbers, something like that, complex numbers. And they plotted this equation on a monitor screen of a computer, and this world opened, something like that. I read something like that, but I'm not a scientist. So what do you think about that? I don't know the
history of it, but as far as I know, fractals are not like a physical thing. They can approximate physical things, but fractals are like a purely mathematical thing. And so, I mean, like, if you make a complex enough set of rules, then you can have you can have things that you didn't expect come out. I mean, that's like the whole business of like, an example would be like a computer program or a computer language, right? Like a coding language.
Yes.
The actual rules to write down a Turing-complete programming language, very, very small, but you can make arbitrarily complex things from it. That's all mathematics is. It's just more formalized and less algorithmic.
Yeah. I see.
I guess I think the question that I'm left with, and I'm sure the audience is also left with, is why does any of this mean that God is real?
Damn it, you let him distract me?
Yeah, I was also going to fall down the fractals rabbit hole. I love fractals.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't think that it's proof of God. I think fractals are rad.
Not a proof of God, but a proof, maybe not a proof, but a clue of something that transcends,
I don't see why.
Okay. Well,
I guess I'm not sure why we couldn't have transcendental things that aren't God.
Okay.
Like, we could have like transcendental categories, and none of these transcendental categories have a mind. So then we would have transcendentals with no God. But I mean, that's like two steps removed, right? Because I'm also not sure why any of these things. I'm not convinced that we need like a transcendental thing.
Can you elaborate on that? I mean, quickly, why?
Yeah, I'm just not convinced, right? Like I see no reason to suppose that there's like this necessary thing that ascribes all of these properties. I think that these
I have the
properties
last
are
question,
largely
yeah.
going to be like definitional and semantic. Like I think numbers, I think all of mathematics is probably analytic.
Okay. I have the last question, so then I leave room for other guests. And this is a question that maybe kind of, it may sound stupid or may sound, but music really freaks me out. I mean, what is its purpose? Why we can perceive music? I don't know.
We like patterns.
What do you think?
Music is patterns.
Yes, but why we? It's almost like magic. I mean, for me, I don't know why we do. Yeah, we like patterns, but what that
I mean, that's
means?
a question for a neurologist, right?
Yeah, I don't know if a neurologist will be. That's a question more of a
or a
philosopher.
neuroscientist, I should say. I mean, like the point is you could play music for somebody, and then while they're getting an MRI, and you can just study what their brain does, and maybe it activates a particular circuit in the brain, and this is a thing that can be studied. This is a scientific question, right? It's not necessarily metaphysical.
Yeah, but why these? But why this machinery is there? I mean, what music? What is the natural purpose of music is?
Right. So that's a question for an evolutionary biologist. Why is that brain circuitry there? Well, maybe it's parasitic on some sort of sensory that was useful for survival in XYZ way. Like these are questions that can be answered, but they're scientific questions.
Yeah, I understand. So you mean maybe like whales? They have the whales internet.
Yeah, maybe it was like maybe it stems from the same reason why we enjoy telling stories or something. Like who knows? But the point is that there could these are questions that are scientifically interesting and can be scientifically studied.
Okay, I understand. Well, hello guys. Nice continuation.
Yeah. Nice talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
A nice discussion.
It's good to talk to you, Walter.
Have a good one, Walter.
Cheers. Well, Walter was nice.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get Philosopher's Volley in here next. Let me grab a super chat from Paul. Paul, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, Holy Spirit, come on this group of men so that they stick to the pages of your holy word and leave the Jezebel spirits behind.
On the face,
but I love the Jezebel spirits.
I do enjoy some Jezebel spirits, but I'm willing to take the shekel shot for Jezebel. All right.
That's insane.
Anti-Semitic.
That's crazy.
All right, let's get Philosopher's Volley in the chat. How you doing, Philosopher?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well. Yeah.
Good to hear. So I'm a philosopher. That's hence the name. Made it easy for you guys. And I got to God backward. So I started as an atheist.
Sorry, quick question. When you say you're a philosopher, do you mean like you're academically like in the philosophical institutions, or like you're a philosopher in that like you read stuff and? No. I think part of it's you're born with it. No different than, people being born good at math. And then part of it is meditative practices, contemplation, things that promote philosophy.
Sure, but you're not like published anywhere.
No.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay.
No, it's not a job. It's just a description of a type of thinker, I guess.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
So you started as an atheist. Phenomenal. I mean, we all started religious. I think technically Blitz never believed, but so we're the opposite, right?
Right. So my uncle was a pastor. I always found the inconsistencies in the Bible as a way of proving God doesn't exist. Right? Because this is how most people are getting to God, is that they're going and they're seeking spirituality, they're seeking depth, they're looking for meaning in life. And basic concepts human beings really struggle with are things that are simple and difficult and complex and easy. And I think God is both of those at the same time.
Okay,
It's
but why is he
simple.
real?
First, let's get to where I think people get God wrong. They try to seek out who God is and not what God is.
I mean, I
So,
fall into neither category, right? I just want to know why he exists. What's the argument that leads us to conclude that he exists?
well, so the base structure for anything requires at least 3 components, including, the dimension we live in, which is the 3rd dimension. You're a bifurcated creature split down the center. In fact, you're made up of 3 parts in multiple ways, including conscious
Bifurcation
mind.
means 2.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
You know what bifurcation means?
Yeah, you're split down the center. You're 2 halves to a whole.
And is okay, and like we acknowledge
Wait.
that 2
You know
isn't
you
3.
know what I'm talking about, right?
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
No
I
idea.
have no
Okay.
clue.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
one singular
Are we-
So hold on.
Are
Pardon
we
me.
getting like Lacanian here, right? Are we like ourselves in our unconscious? Like, what do you?
Pardon one moment. So people have a hard time understanding the distinction between something being separate and something being distinct. The reason your right arm can be longer than your left arm, your right leg longer than your left leg, and that we have a right and left hemisphere, and we have a seam under our balls, is because we're 2 parts, literally 2 halves combined. There's
I
a
just want to make sure we're clear.
that-
I don't have a ball seam.
you do.
Also, to be clear, the reason why we have bilateral symmetry is because the first organisms that evolved to have, spines also had bilateral symmetry. Like
Right.
this is just an evolutionary feature, right? It's not like 2
It
separate
is.
identities.
No. But the problem is people are looking at evolution as separate from God.
Well,
Okay, so
I still want to
what's
know why
the
God
reason-
exists.
What's
Right,
the
and I'm
reason for
getting
thinking
to
God
that.
exists?
My point is, if the way you're trying to get to God is through a book, you're not going to find God that way. You may.
Wait, we're trying to get to God through you. Can you give us the argument for why God exists?
What are you looking for? Like a concise, like 2-minute long, like sentence by
something.
sentence.
Like premise 1, premise 2, conclusion God exists would be nice.
I'm getting to that. So the third part, the third piece. Yes, there's a third piece to everything. Firstly, we have life and we have non-life. What's the third component to that?
That's a true dichotomy. There isn't one.
See, here's the beauty of that, is that I've
Zombies.
not found a single thing that
It's
exists in the
zombies.
physical universe. Everything requires 3 parts. There's nothing that's structurally sound that doesn't require 3 parts, including quarks, neutrons, protons, electrons, atoms
Sorry,
are made
W
up of
bosons don't have 3 parts.
No, but they're theoretical, right? They're the only
No,
thing that we can't
They've been detected. We detected them in the 70s.
detected them in a non. In my opinion, I don't think that's conclusive. I've read people that don't agree
sure.
with the way they believe it's been detected, but
Who?
I do believe it exists. I just think it exists in multiple states for a reason.
Okay, well, it exists in 2 states. You have the W plus and the W minus. There's not a third
Correct.
state.
Well, here's the problem is, right? Let me put it this way. You and I are one being, right? I count myself as one unit. I'm made up of trillions and trillions of other units, made up of trillions and trillions of other units, right? So that's a paradox.
No, right? Because there's like base units to it. You know, it
No, but
bottoms
it's still
out.
a paradox that I'm
Our
one
best
thing
physics
and
indicates that it
multiple
bottoms
things.
out in what is it? What are the fundamental particles? Blitz?
Quarks
Yeah.
and leptons.
Works.
It sounds like you're a mereological nihilist, which is fine. If you want to be a mereological nihilist, I lean that way too.
Well, I'm not a
But
nihilist.
that's not a paradox.
No,
I'm
you're
not
just
a-
like a
no, it
nihilist
is a
about like
paradox.
whether nihilist
How
about
are
like
you one
parts.
thing and trillions of things simultaneously?
It's just a difference in
what
ontology.
That's what mereological nihilism resolves, in some sense.
What? So I'm not familiar with the terminology mereologically, nihilistic.
Yeah,
but-
so mereological nihilism is just this idea that there are no composite objects. That composite
No, there
objects are just
are.
kind of categorical conceptions that we use to talk about things in an efficient way. But really,
Right.
there's no notion of a chair. There's just a bunch of atoms arranged chair-wise.
Right,
or
right.
chair-like.
No, and I
And
don't
so you
believe
can
that
actually-
either. That's not accurate
Okay.
to what I believe.
But
What I
it
believe
resolves
is-
the paradox that you were suggesting was paradoxical. That's all I was saying.
It is paradoxical, but it's solved. It's possible because it has a solution. It has a third part. And for this, it has 4 parts, technically. There's energy holding those atoms, those quarks, those neutrons, those protons, electrons together, and there's space separating them, allowing it to be both individual units, distinct from one another, and a whole being one unit as well. So it makes it possible for multiple things to be one thing. Now, I don't believe the Bible got everything right, but like a good lie, I think they got some things right.
What'd they get right?
They got made in the image of God right.
How do you know that we were made in the image of God?
Because I'm a one unit made up of the sum of countless smaller units.
Right, but
That-
I'm
hold
talking-
on,
Wait,
please.
is a chair
Hang
made
on.
in the image of God?
Yes,
so God is
in
everything?
the sense that everything is in that same way, all connected. Like you and I are not we are distinct from the rest of the universe, but we are not separate from it. Yes,
We're talking
What?
about being made in the image of God. So God is a chair.
correct. Okay.
God is chair-like,
Well,
yes.
listen, if I lose 10 of my cells right now, am I going to disappear? Am I going to die? Am I going to vanish? No, of course. I'm going to be fine. Those parts of me were absolutely still me, but they weren't important to the whole of me. We, along with everything else in this universe, are a part of what makes up God. Only different in the distinction of what we are in relation to that 3-body part.
Wait, so is everything God?
God has 3 parts.
It's a yes or no question.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're saying. God has 3 parts.
Well,
This physical universe and everything in it is one of those
it's an easy
3
question,
parts.
then I guess we're confused why you couldn't say yes or no.
Yeah, I'm confused as
Because I
to
wanted
why
to
we're on
give
the
context
ramble
to what I was
roller
saying.
coaster when I'm trying to just take a stroll down linear lane. Is God everything, yes or no?
I just explained it to you. Okay, so maybe
Well, I
maybe
just want
hold
the, so
on,
yes, God is everything. No, God is not everything.
It's
And then you
yes
can say
and no. And if I
because.
don't explain why it's yes and no, you get
Oh,
confused.
then we have a contradiction.
No,
it's a
we
violation
don't,
of the law of
because it's all
non-contradiction.
paradox.
So wait, so God both is everything and also is not everything. So just a direct contradiction.
Is your right arm your arm?
Yeah, it's one of them. Yeah,
Is your left arm your arm?
it's one of them. Yeah,
Okay, wonderful. Are they distinct from one another?
yeah. I have
So
2
you
arms.
have two completely separate, distinct parts from each other that make up one thing. I'm saying
Wait, they are not one arm. Hold on.
no. They make up one you.
I mean, in addition to all the other parts of me, sure.
Correct. But I'm making a point of, if something is made up of 3 parts, it is all those parts separately, yes, but not all those parts separately at the same time.
Does God have parts?
Yes.
So you reject
3.
divine simplicity?
3 parts, actually. Same
So
as you.
Wait. Do you reject divine simplicity?
I have lots of parts. I don't know.
Yeah.
about Ian, but-
How much simpler does 3 parts get?
No. Okay.
parts
Wait.
or
So
one part?
Gosh, that's my mistake.
3
So
and 1 is the
in
same.
in the philosophical literature, like and this is like kind of like level 1 Thomism. There's this concept called divine simplicity, which states that God does not have parts; He's divinely simple.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because to have any actual structure, you need 3 parts, and 3 parts is fairly simple. It just gets complicated for us because like I said, we don't deal with simple and easy, or simple and difficult and complex and easy. We struggle with these. It's why when people go to the grocery store and they can't find something and someone shows them and it was right in front of their face, they go straight to shitting on themselves.
I'm still confused.
One second.
How is this
I'm almost done with the analogy. What happened isn't that they did something stupid. Those people did something intelligent. They had a problem and they sought the most complicated solution to it. They looked all around the easiest place to look for the product. That's why they missed it.
Oh wait! Oh, I've actually a really easy reductio to this. This is like super simple. So God's made up of three parts: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Right? The Father. What are his three? Oh, sorry. What are? I'm so sorry. I guess just like a couple of words, preferably just one sentence. What are God's three parts?
The physical universe and everything in it. The energy that is just pure where God exists outside of the rules of this place.
I think energy is just a property of the physical universe. It's not like a separate entity from the universe. And Dr. Blitz could actually clarify this better.
Energy can't be a part of this physical universe and the Big Bang be accurate.
It's not a part of anything. It's a property.
I mean, it can't be an innate property and be part of the Big Bang.
It's not. It's just a number.
But my point is the fact that it's not. It means it came from somewhere.
No, it's not a thing that needs to come from. It came from human minds, right? Like it's a thing that we came up with to describe the universe.
Yeah, energy is the measured rate of change in any given physical thing. Like,
also, I'm so sorry, but this leads to like a huge problem in his worldview, right? Because you're saying that God's three parts are the physical universe, the energy where he exists, but then also you're saying that the energy and then like a third one, but you're saying that the energy where he exists came from God. So before God produced this energy. I'm sorry. So you said it needed to come from somewhere. Where did it come from?
What was the third part?
The energy that is in this universe, which is subject to this universe's laws, which are constant change. It's eternal constant change, entropy, right? So everything in this universe...
Entropy, not entropy. That's entropy, not energy, right?
Hold on. So everything in this universe... Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. So everything in this universe is on a continuum. It's on linear time. And even science tells you, even here, there's play. There's rules for linear time that certain things can go against linear time. Okay, so linear time has two parts. Infinity has two parts, always, never. Everything that exists physically, however, has three parts.
Wait, so
yeah, I did too.
Wait, so time has two parts.
Time has two parts.
Everything has three parts.
Everything physical. Everything that's physical has three parts. Everything that's structural.
Time have two parts?
Time has two parts that we know of, and a zero scale, obviously.
What are the two parts?
The linear time as we experience it, and as a Higgs boson would, going back in time. Like
nothing goes back in time.
Higgs bosons can. Yeah, they can.
No, it can't.
Yes, it can.
Okay, find me an article that says that.
You know that Dr. Blitz is an actual PhD holding physicist, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You know that Dr. Blitz is a physicist with a PhD, right?
I mean, I'm not saying like he's stupid. I'm not insulting his intelligence. And maybe I have bad information. I'm not.
Yeah, no. All I'm telling you is that like the idea that Higgs bosons go back in time. Like, I'd love to see like a citation for that.
Well, because they're faster than the speed of light.
No, they're not. They're
they
very
are.
massive and they travel very slowly.
Wait, or maybe I'm talking about a different particle.
We've never detected a particle that travels faster than the speed of light.
Then hold on. Listen, I don't have your contact information, but I can find
it's in the description.
What promoted that. Yeah, if you want to, we could figure that out. But back to the point of God.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. Okay, wait. So one of God's parts is the energy that he exists. What are the three parts of the energy that he exists?
The energy is unchanging. By the way, I'm talking about a three-part structure here.
What do you mean energy is unchanged? Energy, it definitionally is change.
Here it is. Where you and I exist, it is.
Well, wait, so okay. I'm still. Maybe we should recontextualize because I'm still waiting to hear why we should think that God is real in the first place.
Yeah, I am too, but I don't think we're gonna get that answer.
I don't think
I
he has
didn't
an
say.
argument.
I didn't say you should think God is real.
Okay.
I said God is real.
Okay.
Well, okay, let me rephrase. I want to believe true things. If you think it's true, presumably, I would like you, presumably you think it's true, so I would like you to tell me why I should think it's true.
See,
so that I
this
can know
this
true
is more
things.
like this is less a conversation, more like a social beratement, and I'll explain why. I'll
I
explain
just
why.
want to know why I should believe
Because
it's true.
in my
Just
efforts
waiting for
to
the argument. That's it.
yeah, I've been trying to present it, but you keep going back to the same question
What's
of
premise
why.
one? Can
What
we
do
get
you-
premise
what do you ex-
one?
what- No, what do
You
you,
wanna?
expect?
I'll show you social beratement. What's premise one?
What do you expect me to be able to say to
Yeah,
that?
premise one, if X, then God is real, X, or premise two, X, conclusion, God is real. That would be nice.
I don't think you should go around calling yourself a philosopher if you can't lay down like a premise-based argument.
Okay, well, you don't think that? That's fine.
Can
I
you
have no
explain
problem
to
with how
us,
you think of a human being.
as a philosopher, can you explain to us what modus ponens is?
Do you think philosophers are people who go study philosophy? Is that what you think philosophers are?
Yeah, I
By
do,
definition.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
thinking like a person who doesn't think for themselves is the issue.
You're thinking like a
Genuinely.
person who's never engaged with the literature.
Well,
Ian,
you're someone
should
who's
we go
literally
to
trying to
doctors
wait. Hold
that
on,
studied at
hold on. Your
medical school, or should
disapproval
we
of
go to
God.
people
Your
that
disapproval of God
burn
is
sage in
literally
their kitchen?
using the
Yeah.
Bible to disprove God.
Yeah,
Which is like
it's an internal critique, yeah. It's, well, so the logical form that this takes is something called modus tollens. Listen, you might actually learn something about philosophy. So the logical structure of modus tollens is X implies Y. If X is true, then Y is true. Y is not true, therefore X is not true. So if the Bible is true,
didn't say
then
the Bible is
God is all good. Oh, I'm sorry. So if God exists and he's all good, then he wouldn't allow slavery. God did allow slavery. Conclusion, God is not real and good.
no, it's not like that. The relationship between us and God is not one of there's a thing out there that could stop us from doing evil shit if it really wanted to, and it's just choosing not to. It's
Is
a
God all
relationship.
good?
It's a relationship of consciousness as a whole, as you are a part of and are experiencing right now in this moment,
Is God all good?
and then consciousness in its parts.
Wow, how I can't
As-
say yes or no. Is God
We're
all
back
good
on
in
the
your
ramble
worldview?
roller coaster. I just want to take a stroll down linear lane. Is God
This
all
is
good? Yes or
linear for
no?
me. Is God all good? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Well, seeing as you're part of God, I'd say God can't be all good.
Fucking
Double you
roasted,
Adam.
destroyed. All right, I'm
So-
a theist now.
Which properties does God have?
Non-physical in one form, physical universe in another form, and whatever holds the two together.
So he's non-physical in one. He has the property of being non-physical in one form. So is God
Correct.
physical or non-physical?
Both simultaneously.
How?
Just how your electricity and cells, like
Both of these are
it just
physical.
is that way.
Electricity is
It
physical.
structurally needs to be that way.
Yeah, both of those things are physical.
No, they are free. They are physical, yes, but they're not the same phenomena, even close to one
Yeah.
another.
Wait. So
They
why
are.
does it need to be that way?
They aren't. You can't hold electricity.
Yes, you can.
No,
Bad.
you can't.
Yes, you can. I'm an electrical engineer.
I'm doing it right now.
So you
You're
can
talking to
hold
the-
electricity.
Hey, you're talking to the wrong person right now. Yeah, electricity is a phenomenon in which ionized particles move through a crystalline structure. It's not
Right. And create energy.
no, it's not. It doesn't create energy.
All right. Well,
Wait.
I may
Do you
not
want?
have
How
the
about?
electrical engineering degree that you have.
How about we do like
I-
a little counting game, right? So let's take a pen apart and count the number of parts, right? So we got this pen. So we have 1 part, 2 parts,
2 part,
3 parts,
3 part.
4 parts.
Sure.
How many parts does it have?
What's your point?
4 parts.
Yeah, it seems like we found something that doesn't have 3 parts.
No. Three's the base. I said the base for a reason. If I
I
choose
just
to
saw
say a
4
word,
parts in that base.
it's to describe something accurately. Three
So-
is
Yeah.
the base for any physical phenomena in this universe. Everything has to be third dimensional.
But we already
as a
covered
bare
that
minimum.
lie. That's not what dimensions mean, by the way.
Third dimensional means it has height, length, and width.
Yeah, but you're talking about base parts. Base
Yes,
parts and
every-
dimensions are not the same thing.
I'm not talking about the dimension having 3 parts.
We need a word salad emoji for this live stream really bad.
I'm saying our dimension that we operate in is 3rd dimension. 3 dimension. We don't. There's nothing in this universe that's 1-dimensional.
How many dimensions are there, Dr. Blitz?
4 up into infinity, I suppose, but it's
so
irrelevant.
Yes, there is. What if like a single point that's 1-dimensional?
There is no such thing as a 1-dimensional physical thing.
By the way, there might be. There are these things called cosmic strings, which genuinely would be 1-dimensional.
They would, if they exist, which I'm not.
Hypothetical though.
Yeah, and I'm not against the idea that they exist, but if they exist as a solved paradox.
No, they're totally non-paradoxical. They're just a topological defect in space-time.
You know what my favorite part about physics, and I actually love physics, believe it or not.
As much as philosophy?
I love physics. My favorite part is physics seems to always end up proving metaphysics.
That's not true.
And this beautiful, it's almost like there aren't many things that you can look at that aren't great, that the nature of them is it's turbulent and it's not pretty, but it still ends up being beautiful. That's one of them for me. Is that physics always proves metaphysics.
That's not true. All right, well, listen, we had a good time talking to you, philosopher Valley, but we're going to move on to our next guest. No, it's definitely a chasm, but we appreciate you coming up, okay?
Bro, that's like the most insane stolen valor I think I've ever heard in my entire life. Take philosopher out of your name. Don't call yourself that.
That guy was wild. And Hex, thank you for the $2 super chat. LFG Ian. Listen, I'm not cool enough or young enough to know what LFG means, but
let's fucking go.
There you go.
Boomer.
Guys, I'm a million years old. You gotta remember this. I'm so old. Like literally my hip is about to break the next time I fall.
Hey, you see that globe in your background? It's probably younger than you.
It is.
What,
it is.
What was Yugoslavia still around when you were alive?
Yeah. I was around for Pangea,
was the Ottoman Empire?
Johannes, thank you for the $5 super chat. Johannes
I think Yugoslavia broke up in like '94, by the way. So technically, I think I was alive when it broke up.
Yeah, Justin is the lost disciple. He asked to have his name taken off the research paper.
That's it. Johannes Brom says, got any measurably accurate, verifiable evidence? Of course not. It's always confused, self-contradictory, BS, lacking any understanding of science, and you nailed it. Yes. I read something on the internet, and therefore it's true. And Jerry, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. That's super generous. We appreciate the support of the channel, Jerry. Because you guys are the bestest. Jerry, you are the bestest. We appreciate that, bud. And I think, let me see if we have any more super chats, guys. That might be all of them. Guys, thank you so much for being here and for supporting the channel. We're out here having fun talking to people. We're gonna get Nort Mexican in the queue next, and then we've got
Nort Texican. There's not an M in the name.
The text is so small on my screen. I apologize.
Yeah,
Nort Texican. There we go. And then we're gonna get Icon, Vexial, and Michael in here in that roughly in that order. Welcome in, Nort Texican.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
How's it going?
Okay, what's going on, guys?
Doing well.
Howdy.
What religion are you?
I kind of consider myself Christian, but just mostly by heritage, I guess. But
okay.
I like to keep all faiths in kind of sacred regard.
Sure. So what's the argument that God exists?
I think, to me personally, we have the whole idea of God wrong, right? And that is due to like fundamental aspects to our social frameworks, the way in which we are conditioned to relate to our place in reality. Baseline, it kind of sets us on this tract of just an inability to ever form a cohesive consensus, right? Because fundamentally, political discourse or any kind of discourse revolves on either divergent moral frameworks or what have you. But if both of those trains of thought are footed in a sort of shared psychosis into relation to how we relate to reality, then they are lacking. They're veiled perceptions, and navigating that veil, right, I think is what y'all are kind of speaking to as deconstruction, which I kind of wanted to hear more from y'all because I'm kind of new to this whole sphere. But I think that is kind of...
Nortexican, I hate to cut you off, but weren't you the guy who was like saying you're going to destroy us in the live chat? Or was that a different dude?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just like, there was a huge tone
for it.
shift that happened here, and I'm just really like thrown off.
There's always a lion in the comments and a lamb in the box.
Okay, well, let me hear something. Jump in whenever you'd like. I'm eager to.
Well, you're...
Yeah, well, yeah. I just want to. I'm still
I
waiting
don't know
for.
where quite
Like, what's the evidence that God is real? Like, why?
So
if
context, we're all atheists. How about that?
Okay, all right. And to me, when I hear somebody say they're atheist, it's like saying you don't believe in oxygen, right? Like, we're so intimately a part of this whole system that what would be your explanation for
But
that?
we know
Like,
oxygen exists. We don't know that God exists. So what's the argument that would lead us to God?
Okay, so what would be... First, let me hear that why there wouldn't be God. Like, you're
Well, that's just burden shifting.
Well, yeah, give me the argument that the tooth fairy doesn't exist.
Okay. Could you explain your process of deconstruction? I am eager to hear that before
I never believed, so I didn't have
no
one.
argument for God then.
Well, no, I do, but I'm just eager to, like, where do I try to approach these kind of...
That's
Okay.
up to you. Ask the
Broad.
Holy
Do you
Spirit
think-
for power.
Do you think God is all good?
No, I think God is like... if the light were loaded into the game, right, and the darkness were loaded into it as well, right, the devil and the light and the devil. The devil would actually be the self-soothing, moralistic idealisms that we tend to project on each other in reality. And that forms the basis of our social structures, our institutional, educational entities.
Wait, are you a VOR guy?
Another thing I wanted to add is, like,
Sounds
I
like
think
it.
that a lot of these things get caught up, and I think I put it to, like, very extroverted personality types, right? They tend to get stuck in some epistemology or etymology argument that's just arguing semantics and start chasing their tail with this, like...
We asked you like very
argument
simple
that-
questions about God. We're just trying to find answers. So, in your
Right, and I'm
worldview,
trying to
is
find a
God,
language to convey
is
it
God
to you,
all
right?
just?
Absolutely not. No,
Okay, so
because it's
so
a metric
then-
to which...
So Deuteronomy
It's a-
32 is wrong, where it says that he is
Let me,
the rock.
before we
His
start getting into the book,
works.
let me just...
It says,
Oh,
I will
yeah.
proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock. His works are perfect, and all of his ways are just. So if you believe that your God is in alignment with the book, you have to believe that he's all just.
Well, I didn't really want to get into the book because I said I hold them in sacred
Yeah, I'd
regard,
be
but I
afraid of that
think that
book,
they're
too.
corruptible. Well, I mean, I think the message would be corruptible very quickly because of our experiences.
Then why believe it?
Yeah, why believe
Right.
any of this nonsense?
Okay, let's backtrack. What was the original question before we quoted the Bible? Because there was a point I wanted to make.
Is your God all
okay.
just?
So, if the metric to which we hold ourselves above the rest of creation, right, the kind of narcissistic hope that we use to shield ourselves from the
Guys,
reality that
I'm
that
getting
we are consuming.
hounded by this guest so bad. I got to take a bathroom break.
All right, do you want me to pause or?
No, yeah, keep going.
No, there's there's the rest of us, right?
All right,
Yeah.
okay, I'll continue.
Look, so I was never.
Well, can I
never
finish my
believed in
thought,
God.
please?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
By all
I'm sorry.
means. He just
Okay,
can't.
I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, so I never believed in God. So what argument would convince me to believe?
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just eager to get the thought into articulation.
You're fine.
So, the way I approach the whole concept of God and this whole reality that we're inexplicably, involuntarily a part of is, if the metric we hold ourselves above the rest of creation is the level of our consciousness, right? We kind of violate that purpose of life and become hypocrites to our own metric when we wallow in these kind of emotional egalitarian idealisms that are kind of the typical psychological tract of our theological structures, our social structures. And to me, I think that there's a lot of science suggesting that we can only remember 300 names and faces, and that's kind of indicative of how
So that's great, but why should that make me believe in God?
Yeah, these are really cool facts
Because
that you learned last week. Nobody cares. Give the argument.
Right, because all these things are related, right? Is this concept like, I'm not a big, I don't know. I guess you
what's
could
premise
describe it as
one?
synchronicity, right? Like,
Would you say that you have like a
Okay.
syllogism for like a syllogism or like either inductive or deductive that might lead us to believe that you're correct when you say God exists?
I wouldn't inflate my importance that much. I kind of like to keep my glass half full, right? But I do definitely
So
like
you're
to be like,
Are you
the
an
way
agnostic?
the way No, not at all. I think through these beliefs, they would bolster anybody's faith because it relies on you to be able to take on that inexplicable reality that you are tied to all this and you are part of the God force. Like God is breathing in the percept and breathing out the concept. Like that is God. And you can't escape it. But we tend to want to flounder
I
in
don't know
some
what
kind
that
of
means.
lull of our...
Justin, Ian, do you guys know what this means? What like,
It sounds
breathing
like
into percept means?
I can't. So it sounds like someone who is acquainted with gosh, what's a word? What's a good censor word?
It's the,
Like a certain type of fungi. People will take like a certain, and then they'll come back saying like, "Man, we're all connected, man. Don't you feel it, man? We're all connected." That's basically what I'm getting out of this. So let's say that we all feel connected to the universe. Why does that mean that the universe has a mind, or that the mind created the universe?
Okay, let me. I'm sorry, my mind was elsewhere. Let's say the mind created the universe. Is that what you're saying?
Well, why should we
No.
assume, even if we feel like interconnected to the universe, why should we assume that the universe has a mind, or that the interconnectedness has a mind, or that this mind created the universe? Because that's what God is, right? It's an immaterial mind that created everything. Like at its core, that's what God means.
Right. I would be interested to see how you perceive it, or
That is like the definition in the literature. When we say God isn't real, that's what we're talking about. We're saying a mind that is immaterial didn't create the universe.
Well, I think God is not a mind, right? He's a
Oh, okay. Then we don't
force
really
or
disagree.
energy or whatever you want to think that's not bound by time, space, or representation, right? I definitely think that he's not of this system, right? Which I think we tend
Why
to
are
inflate
you-
our importance in the
I'm
system.
confused. Why are you describing God as an agent, like with pronouns, for example? But then you say that God is not a mind. Like, would you refer to a
Because
book as
because physics, right, is these forces that are true of all creation, the whole system, right? They transcend our experiential aspects to our condition, right? But God has to be a part of that somewhere. So I'm interested to
Well,
hear
why?
where
Can
you
you
would
wait? You're not
place
listening, and I can prove it really easily. What was Dr. Blitz's question?
You see, okay. I'm posing you a question. What would be your
You didn't
evidence that
fucking
there is
listen
no
to
God?
you didn't even listen to the question. You just wanted to ramble more. We're back on the ramble
you
roller
interrupted me.
coaster.
You interrupted me.
What was Dr. Blitz's question? What was the question that you were answering from Dr. Blitz? Do you remember?
No. What was the
Yeah,
question?
so the question was, why are you referring to God as an agent with pronouns when you describe him as something like a force or like energy?
Because it's just easier to communicate the concept that way.
Then why don't physicists do that with like forces or energy?
Because we're all limited by this like baseline innate way in which we relate to reality and perceive and take in information, and all these things. Like we're limited by our condition, which in some like, okay, well, what about this like epistemological aspect of it, or about this etymological?
What we're
aspect?
interested in is an argument. We just want like, so God exists, and we can know that God exists because this reason. What is this reason?
That life is fundamentally founded and rooted in violence and indifference, and we tend to project
Why does that mean God is
fairness,
real?
and equality onto it.
That seems
actually
like
sounds like
very
that
that
would-
seems
You
very
are-
in line with like a universe which is completely indifferent to us. That doesn't seem in line with a God.
Right.
Oh, so you believe in a cold, indifferent
when I hear-
universe?
when
So
I hear
you're an
you guys talking,
atheist.
it's like when I hear you guys talking about the denial of God, I'm hearing more of like a pillar of your psychology pulled out from underneath you, and you're trying to replace it with something that doesn't have. It has a kind of a ceiling to which you can introspectively apply some of these broader
You don't have to
There it
concepts that are
replace
innate
things
to
that
our.
don't exist.
You do, because we are bound and confined to these patterns of psychological behavior. Like it is innate to our
Yeah, from
reality and how we
evolution.
relate.
It's all physical.
Right, and to me, I think this is an animalistic vestige from our evolution of consciousness. And I was trying to get to that. Like I think that.
Wait, so what do we
perhaps
disagree
our
about?
I think that probably most people would shun the idea that life is rooted in violence and indifference, and that we should
Wait.
our
No, you're gonna answer this question. What do we disagree about?
the existence of God.
But it seems like by your definition, if all you mean by God is like energy, well, we certainly think energy exists. So what do we disagree about?
Okay, that's what I was trying to pose the question to you, because I would like to hear more of how your perspective.
No. You're going to answer this question. What do we disagree about? Otherwise, if we don't disagree about anything, then we got to move on to the next guest.
Okay, I feel like gaslit or something. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, so
I believe.
You can take all of us to be some form of physicalist, materialist, naturalist, something like that. What do you disagree with that position? Which part of that position or things akin to it do you disagree with?
That's an interesting pose, because I'm trying to make a point and it's pulling me back to square one, and like my brain just cannot brain with it right now. So if you want to move on, it's fine. I'll give the stage respectfully.
Well, thanks for coming through.
Absolutely.
All right, have a good one. Where is he at? All right, next in, did we say Icon or Vexiel? Well, Icon's actually...
I don't know, whoever's been...
Icon's got his camera open and his mic ready to go, so let's grab him.
And he's staring at us.
And let me... Also, Johannes Proms, thank you for the $2 super chat, says, if God is not real, then he's not real. Yeah, if God is not reality, I agree, then he's certainly not real. And thank you for the super chat. Welcome in, Icon.
Everybody's turning on their camera now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Icon.
Okay, I'm joining from Thailand. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, your mic is really echoey. Is that just me, guys, or everyone else?
No, I'm hearing it as well, yeah.
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 I'm not sure if there's like much you can do about that, though.
I think it might be your connection. We can hear you. It's just really slow and choppy and robotic.
Can you hear me better now?
Not really. Your connection's pretty poor. Do you have Wi-Fi? Because I'm showing on your device that your connection's really slow. You've got basically 3 orange bars.
Wait, let me close down some apps. Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it might actually be. Try turning off your video.
Yeah, turn your video feed off and see if it fixes your audio feed.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, I think this is workable.
Hello?
It's fine.
Mic check?
Yep.
Yeah,
hello?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so Icon, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yep.
Cool. And what God do you believe in?
I'm 18 years old this year.
Cool.
I'm a theistic.
Which one?
Theistic, Christian.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So what's the evidence that the Christian God is
like for
real?
today's argument,
or I guess like if you want to defend
for
like
today's
the theistic
argument, I just want to
go for it.
Yeah. I just want to defend like the theistic God for just now, if that makes sense.
Sure, go ahead and give the argument if you have one.
Yeah, so when I tend to go to arguments for God, I go to like the 3 arguments that I think are really solid for God, which is the cosmological, teleological, and morality. So for the cosmological, it deals with the beginning of the universe, like time, space, and matter. It basically goes, if time, space, and matter had a beginning, then it had a cause.
What's the evidence that time, space, and matter had a beginning?
Well, I don't think that's even controversial between atheists also, because I think like atheists like Stephen Hawking even would agree that well, I mean, like even some atheists
Stephen
do admit
Hawking's dead, and he doesn't speak.
Even
for all
some atheists do.
And at the end of his life, he recanted the idea that all things came into existence from nothing, and that time started out of nothing.
Well, okay, well, I would just say even some atheists would admit that like time, space, and matter had a beginning at the Big Bang.
Well, we don't.
Damn, that's cool. Go talk to them. You're talking to us. What's the evidence that time, space, and matter had a beginning?
Yeah, but I'm saying even atheists can agree with that.
No,
right?
we
don't
agree with
that.
that. We literally don't
That's
agree
not
with
like-
that.
We don't agree with that.
Yeah, but that's only you. I'm talking about some atheists that can also.
But you're talking to us.
Wait, I'm so sorry.
That's what
Are
I'm
you
saying.
talking to some atheists or are you talking to us?
No, I'm just saying as a fact that atheists can agree that time,
No,
space, matter had a beginning,
The
right?
fact
Well,
that
so to
we
be
can't
clear-
agree.
There are
Well-
atheists that will agree to that. You're just
Okay,
not talking to them.
Okay,
Yeah,
let-
go find those people.
let
Yeah,
me-
I bet you can. I bet you
let me
can
present
wall
it
up
to you.
those people on the cosmological argument. You're talking to us. What's the evidence that these things had a beginning?
Okay, so do you believe in the Big Bang?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe?
No.
What is the Big Bang then?
Phase transition, roughly.
It's just a big old expansion
Well,
of matter.
Do you? Yeah, but do you believe that time, space, and matter had a beginning?
No.
No, we've
Already
been
covered
over
this.
this.
Why do you think time, space, and matter are eternal?
Because there's
It's
no
at least
evidence.
consistent with the data we have,
Yeah.
and it's there's good theoretical reason to think that this is at least plausible.
Well, but I mean, we all know we're gonna go to heat death eventually, right? Like energy is running down.
No, that's not even on the table. That might not even be on the table anymore.
Also, you're not understanding that
Well,
concept
second law.
properly
What is
either.
second law of thermodynamics? Says?
In a closed system where
What am I not
energy is
understanding properly?
conserved. So the second law of thermodynamics is that in a closed system where energy is conserved, and I guess that you also need a time-like killing vector, maybe. But in a closed system where energy is conserved, the entropy of that system will increase monotonically. That's the second law of thermodynamics.
Okay, so that's the only universe we can observe right now, right? And so if it's running down, it has a beginning to wound it up to begin with.
No, it doesn't follow. For example,
Why
you could
not?
have an eternal. You could have an
Well,
eternal
because
universe.
it's running down.
Yeah, so you could have an eternal universe whose entropy has always been infinite, meaning greater than any finite value. This is the case if your universe is infinitely large, for example, in which case the entropy can always be increasing in any global region, and yet could have always been increasing forever, and it'll just remain infinite forever. There are also other ways, namely that if you don't have a time-like killing vector, this roughly means that there's not a well-defined notion of time cosmologically. Then you can have entropy reversals, you can have lack of energy conservation, you can have all sorts of funky things happening.
Wait, so are you saying that the universe is like eternal and static?
No, if it were static, then you would have a problem, but it's not static. It's very much changing.
Well, so I mean, which is it? Does it have a beginning or does it not?
I don't think it has a beginning.
None of
At
us
least
believe
that's
it
the way
has
I
a
lean.
beginning. Like,
So it's eternal.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I mean, if by eternal you mean that there are an infinite number of total days or an infinite number of total seconds or something, maybe.
Eternal, I mean that like time, space, and matter never had a beginning, so it never came into existence in one point. It just exists forever, just like I think what Einstein used to think.
If that's what you mean by eternal, then sure. I lean that way.
Yeah, but like, yeah. But like, I'm making a case that like, for example, the evidence of the Big Bang, right? The universe, time, space, and matter had a beginning at the Big Bang. Is my position.
That's a misunderstanding of the Big Bang.
Well,
That's like
what is the Big
perhaps
Bang? then?
70 years out of date, maybe 40 years out of date.
Well, what is the interpretation of the Big Bang then?
Essentially, that 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was very small, very hot, and then it expanded for whatever reason. I mean, it doesn't say anything about it being the beginning. It doesn't even say anything about it having zero size, just that it was very small, on the order of, if you're talking about the observable universe, which is now 93 billion light years across,
Yeah.
13.8 billion years ago, it was about the size of a beach ball.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if it's expanding, right, then that must imply that it had a beginning that it was expanding into. Like, it is taking time to expand. You know.
So what is true is that the expansion had a beginning, or at least this mode of expansion had a beginning. And you know, that's either the proper beginning of the universe, if the universe actually does have a beginning, or it's the moment when our local patch of universe began to expand from something prior.
Well, what's the evidence that there was something prior then? I mean,
well, the point is, so you brought up the cosmological argument. You brought up premise one, namely that the universe had a beginning. We're just asking you to defend that.
Yep.
To present an argument for that claim.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much agnostic on the issue. I lean towards the universe having been eternal. But my evidence doesn't, my evidence or lack thereof doesn't affect your argument at all.
Yeah. So, and from like a philosophical perspective, more so, so what you're putting forward is essentially the claim that the universe must have a beginning because it's rapidly expanding. We're showing how this is like possibly not the case by demonstrating to you a scenario in which that wouldn't be true, which would mean that this doesn't need to be the case. It's not necessarily true that because the universe is expanding, that means that it has a beginning. So the onus is on you to show that time, space, and matter came into existence, that they did have a beginning. Can you do that, or do you just want to move on to the teleological argument?
No, I want to stay on this because, like, if it's expanding, right, then that must imply that it had a beginning to it in order to start expanding. Otherwise, if it's eternal, right?
That the expansion had a beginning.
You know what I mean?
Right, it implies that the expansion had a beginning.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But there could have been
expansion
universe
of what,
prior to the expansion. Right.
Yeah, you could have had like the time, space, and matter just in like a smaller form.
Okay, but did that had a beginning though?
Why?
Why?
Because that's my whole point. Like, if time, space, and matter had a beginning, right? If time, space, and matter had a beginning,
but we don't believe it does.
But well, I mean, I kind of show you evidence because you agree that it is expanding, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Something expanding doesn't mean that it didn't exist before it started expanding.
Wait, how?
When you take a balloon, blow air into it, the expansion started at some point in time, but the balloon pre-existed the expansion.
Same way if you drop a rock into the water, the ripples start when the rock drops into it, but the water didn't begin to exist when the rock dropped into it.
When the rock dropped into it. But when I'm saying like time, space, and matter had a beginning, right? And like it's expanding, or it's like its energy is decreasing, right? Entropy, basically. Then it must have a starting point in order to have a lower point of energy. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to heat death, and we all know that.
No, that's not even supported by the most recent available data anyway. Like this,
we can quash this pretty quickly, right? So there's something called the quantum eternity theorem that indicates that the universe has always existed. So the best physics would indicate that the universe has always existed.
What is that?
Yeah, so it's a derivation from the Schrodinger's equations.
So what is the 13.8 billion years old of the universe we're talking about then?
Yeah, that's when the Big Bang happened, but the universe could have existed before that.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be a speculation that we don't have evidence to
No,
observe?
it's based on the quantum eternity theorem.
Well, what is that? I've never heard of it. You mind explaining?
Yeah, it's a derivation from the Schrodinger's equations that just indicates that if there's a non-zero amount of energy in the universe, then the universe has always existed.
But why would we take like a conclusion from something we don't have evidence we can base off? Like, for example, Hubble discovered
We do have evidence.
the expansion of the universe and like the random heat, right?
Yeah, so all the evidence for the truth of quantum mechanics, all the evidence for the truth of quantum mechanics is evidence for the Schrodinger's equations. All of the evidence for the Schrodinger's equations is thus evidence for the quantum eternity theorem. So the totality of evidence that supports quantum mechanics, which is overwhelming, by the way, is evidence that the universe has always existed.
Yeah, but
Also, like,
how would you still deal with the 13.8 billion years old?
So, okay, look, there's two things happening here. The first thing is that is a misunderstanding of what this 13.8 billion years means. When we say the universe is 13.8 billion years old, what that's really saying is not that nothing existed before it. What we're saying is that whatever we see now didn't exist 13.8 billion years ago. Stars, galaxies, gases, none of that stuff existed 13.8 billion years ago. Now, whether that means that was the true beginning of all time and all space is a very different question. The second issue is this idea that inevitably we're ending up towards, heat death or something. That was the prevailing idea from about 1998 until 2024. As of 2024, evidence came out, namely from the dark energy spectroscopy instrument, that suggests, this is tentative data, but it suggests, and we're going to have more data in about a month, suggests that in fact the universe is not going towards heat death, and rather it might recollapse in the distant future.
Okay, but again, why would we take evidence, something that we can observe, why would we take that as a stronger evidence than something we can observe? Like,
wait, sorry, did you observe the Big Bang?
The universe running out.
Because you take the fact that the Big Bang happened as true, and I agree.
But like,
I also
Hubble
think it is true, but you want to cite evidence when it supports you and reject it when it doesn't support you. Like, you were all about like 13.8 billion years ago, but I mean, you obviously didn't observe that, so you want to invoke science when it supports your point, and then deny science when it doesn't support your point. Because
I don't think it's true, because I think Hubble did discover the expansion of the universe rightfully so, and I think that shows the beginning.
That was 100 years ago. Science has progressed since then.
But how would you dispute that the fact that the universe
Hubble's observation that
Hubble's
observation that galaxies recede at a rate proportional to their distance is wrong. It's factually wrong. This was proven in 1998, and a Nobel Prize was awarded in like 2001 for it. Rather, what we see is that there is an accelerated expansion. That was demonstrated in 1998. We call that dark energy or a cosmological constant. Last year, that was potentially refuted, where, again, more data is coming next month, so we'll see if the data stands up or not. But again, there is strong evidence that's pointing to that idea in 1998, that's wrong too, that the universe's expansion isn't accelerating at a fixed rate, that actually the acceleration is decreasing. And if you model that out, you would end up with a recollapsing universe in the distant future. So, like, this is real science, but you can't just stick with stuff that's 100 years old.
Well, I mean, you heard of what Einstein's greatest mistake is, right?
Einstein died 70 years ago.
Yeah, but what does the history timeline have to do with true or false?
He didn't have all of the data. He didn't have all of the data.
Yeah, science progresses. That's what it has to do with it. His science is going to be 70 years out of date compared to the best science.
How about this? I have another one. So since new data is coming up in science. Science is tentative and always changing. We're discovering new things. Right? How about this? I have a philosophical argument that time had a beginning. I want to present to you guys.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so think of a timeline, right? You have today, you have yesterday, and you have a day before yesterday, and it keeps going. And the question is, can that timeline go on forever?
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
How can it go on forever and today have arrived?
Okay, wait. So let's do like a parity argument. So we have the number 0, we have the number -1, we have the number -2. How can we keep going back infinitely on this number line and also have the number 0?
You can't, because if it was infinite, then you have to live an infinite amount of days before you got to today. There must be a finite amount of days before you got to today.
So numbers aren't infinite.
Numbers are, but like you cannot have an infinite finite universe, right? A universe is finite.
Well, we think the universe always existed.
No, but like things that you can see are finite, right? Things that you can observe.
Oh, okay, wait.
You can't have an infinite rock or something.
Do you believe that moments exist?
You can't
that,
have
like, there are
infinite seconds.
Wait, are there moments in time?
Oh, they are.
How many?
But like, and how would you define moment?
Just like
long
like
is a
an
moment?
instant in time, like 1 point in the timeline. How many moments are there in the timeline?
It's a contradiction because it's not how many, right?
How many? How many moments are there?
You're asking like how many is one point? Like
No, like in the entire, in any like
that's not
continuous
there's no
section of
distance.
time, how many points are there?
Is there a limit to it?
Between
are you
this
saying like how
second
many?
and
He knows
this
the
you get
answer,
second,
by the way. He just doesn't want to let it.
how
leave
many
his
moments
lips.
were there?
It's obviously 700.
42.
So look,
You can keep going,
there's-
right? You can keep going with the decimal point.
Yeah.
So
there's infinite.
Perhaps to reframe, I mean,
But if you have
if you're going to make the claim that there cannot be an infinite number of prior days, and your argument was, how can there be an infinite? How could you end up at today? A question is just not an argument, right? If you want to prove that there can't be an infinite number of previous days, you have to derive a contradiction. You have to derive something like, if there's an infinite number of days, then horses don't exist. Horses do exist, therefore there are not an infinite number of days. You have to do something like that.
But how is it
just
a
ask the question.
category mistake though? I'm
not
saying like you think about. But why doesn't this make sense though? If there's a finite amount of days, right, then you can get to today. But if there's infinite, then you cannot get to today or tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to add another day.
Every day is today.
Every day is today is today.
But do you think past and future exists?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have an infinite past, you will never arrive at the present. That's the point.
From where?
Every moment is the present.
But
To somebody,
what about
that
the
actually might be
past
true.
and
Is that true? No, that's not true.
So, I mean, I guess to cut to the chase, are you familiar with the B theory of time?
Yeah, the B theory or the A theory, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you mind like just laying it out?
Yeah, sure. So, I personally hold to B theory of time, which states that all moments are equally real. All moments exist, and the passage of time is illusory, basically. So there's no contradiction here, because all these moments already exist. Not at like the same
you just have
time,
to
of
explain what
course, because it's a different
happened.
dimension. But they all exist.
Yeah,
They're all real.
Right.
So unless you have an argument
like-
for why that's not true, then that just completely takes out the point. In the same way that there are an infinite number of numbers, there can be an infinite number of days.
Well, but for time, right? Like you're living in time. You can't just like transgress an infinite number of days and get to like the present days. Like
Maybe I can ask a question
You would just
that
be
will-
statically like stuck in one
So
frame.
every moment is the present day, which means if you exist, you're already at it. You can arrive there because you are it.
Maybe I should ask. Maybe I can ask a clarifying
Yeah,
question.
but that-
So like Icon. So when you say you have to travel over an infinite number of days, typically when we think about like traveling some duration, like I'm going to New Zealand for 10 days, what that 10 days is a marker of is it's the number of days between when I get there and when I leave. So when you say you would have to endure or traverse over an infinite number of days, what's the start and end point that you're using to measure the difference in time between them being infinite?
Well, what I'm saying is that time had a beginning, and it is possible. My view is that it is possible that time had a beginning and it doesn't have an end. So it's just like a point, and then it points infinitely into one direction. But it does have a beginning. That's my view. So if it doesn't have a beginning, meaning that there's no like point.
But I was just asking. So your proof or your claim is that you can't traverse an infinite number of days to get to today. That's your assertion here. But I'm asking, okay, so when we talk about traversing a certain number of days, I'm going to traverse 10 days when I'm in New Zealand, right? I'm going to go from the beginning to the end is 10 days.
Yeah.
What is the beginning that you're saying that we have to start at to traverse an infinite number of days? What is the point?
What do you mean beginning? B? Like when you start?
So look, you're saying there's an infinite number of days between.
Well, point A is when you start.
But there is no start if the universe has always existed. So which day is the starting day?
Yeah.
The point is
there's no starting day.
So if you pick any day, so if you pick any, let's just hypothetically imagine for a moment that the universe has always existed. Just imagine. If you pick any 2 days, there will be a finite amount of days between them. There are no pair of days where there's an infinite amount of days between them, right? So there's no issue with traversing the infinite because never do you have to start somewhere and end somewhere else in order and then pass over an infinite number of days to get there. That's never the case. So it just seems like not a category error.
What do you mean? Like if there were...
What I'm saying is that you're thinking about this you're thinking about this as if the universe started an infinite amount of time ago, but that's not the claim, right? The claim is that there wasn't a start.
But if there wasn't a start, then there's no action at all. Like there's no like duration, including our actions right now. It will be, you know what I mean? Like it's just like how can we have an action? It would just be a screenshot. Well, because if you don't have a timeline, then you can't even move.
No,
you don't have any
have a timeline.
Speed,
it just doesn't
no velocity,
have a beginning.
No nothing.
It just doesn't have a beginning. Kind of like how the number line doesn't have a beginning, right? There's no like first number, right?
Yeah. Well, then you were started like
saying.
you're not start. That's a contradiction, right? If you were not start.
Number, so think about like all of the numbers. You have like negative 386, and you have 4012, and you have 1.9. You have all of the numbers, right?
Wait, so, and I'm so sorry, because maybe I can cut to the chase like
sure,
a little bit quick. So are you of the opinion that if something doesn't have a start, then it couldn't exist?
If something doesn't have a start, then it... No, I'm saying going back to my original claim, I'm saying that everything that has a beginning has a cause. That's basically the cosmological position.
Oh, sure, yeah, and we can totally agree with that. But there's like two things here. First, we don't think that the universe necessarily has a cause. We don't think that it has a beginning, so there's no conflict there. And second of all, how about we hone in a little bit on the first premise? You're probably just going to support this with like induction, like we look around us and all that we see is things that have causes, that when something comes into existence, it has a cause. But let's get more specific than that. Things that come into existence have a material cause. Material things that come into existence have a material thing that caused them. Do you agree?
That's true, but...
Sure.
That's true, then but God doesn't exist. Think that materials are eternal?
Well, so if we agree that material things have a material cause, then we would agree that God doesn't exist because the universe is a material thing. Therefore, God, an immaterial person, couldn't have caused it. Because we just agreed that material things have material causes, which means God could not have caused the universe because he's not a material cause.
But what caused materials, though?
They've just always existed.
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. If it does, like, that's what we're trying to argue, right? Like, I'm making the case that it doesn't, because I'm making the case that materials had a beginning.
Just cut this short, and just like offer a potential point to a learning point that we can learn more about, right? So there are like a bucket load of cosmologists. Probably not most of them, but a significant chunk of cosmologists whose day job is coming up with models that are compatible with past eternal universes. So I could just like I could list off like 4 for you right now, who literally, not as we speak, but who have models or are coming up with models that describe a universe that's always existed, which is compatible with the data, with the data that we see. In fact, I'm literally working on one right now. Can't speak on it, and it'll probably be a while. But like, this is a thing that people do. So do you think that the cosmologists who are doing that are just philosophically ill-informed, or do you think that they're working off of like the data that we have available and like our best understanding of how time works?
No, but I do want to say this though. Like I want to state that there's a difference between the Big Bang theory and the evidence for the Big Bang.
All I'm saying is that there are serious scientists who are considering the possibility of the universe having always existed. So, I mean, it just sounds like you're suggesting, which I guess if you want to suggest this, you can. It just sounds like you're suggesting that they're just philosophically ill-informed and that they're wasting their time.
No, not at all. Like, I respect anybody who comes into like a different position, but I'm just, for my position, obviously, like I try to make the case that, otherwise.
So,
okay, so then make the case.
So, but like,
that's what we've been doing.
I'm not really sure his argument's ever going to land, because his argument requires us to agree on a position that we don't fundamentally agree on. And I think for me, Occam's razor is all you need, because
move on to, like,
if we have two competing theories, one is that everything around us that we can see, we can test, we know that this stuff exists, right? It's much more believable to just say, well, it must have always existed, than to actually believe it once didn't exist, and a sky fairy that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't test is the result of the cause of all this stuff. One of those explanations is infinitely simpler than the other, and more plausible, because we know that this stuff exists. We have no evidence that your God exists.
Well, okay, can I just complete the thought to how I get to God?
I think we're on that argument right now, aren't we?
Okay, so basically my complete thought is, if time, space, and matter had a beginning, right? Then it has a cause. Then that cause can't be time, space, or matter, because
we all know that argument
because time,
already.
space,
We
matter
know the
didn't
Kalam.
exist.
Icon. We all know the Kalam. You failed to support premise number 1 of the Kalam.
Yeah.
So just as a point of reference,
which is what?
So do you know who William Lane Craig is?
Yeah.
Okay, so William Lane Craig is like the biggest proponent of the Kalam cosmological argument, and the way that he purports to defend it is he has to reject general relativity. Like, he has to do that. He instead refers to something called neo-Lorentzianism, which is like some modified thing that has absolute space and absolute time, and general relativity is just not correct. So like, and this is something that he mentions. He's like, yeah, I'm a neo-Lorentzian. He doesn't take the B theory of time seriously. He doesn't take general relativity seriously, except when he talks about the BGV theorem. But the point is that like, that's like, even the biggest proponent of the Kalam has to reject some like a scientific thing that we all take seriously. So it just like, is that really where you want to hitch your horse, hitch your wagon?
I'm sorry, but like, isn't like the general relativity theory states that time, space, and matter are correlative?
No.
Like, they came into existence together.
No. That's
Einstein showed the time, space.
Einstein did not do that.
What was he showing in his relativity, though?
So general relativity is the statement that matter and energy and momentum and pressure and shear, those things warp space-time, and warp space-time affects the trajectory that things take through space-time.
Yeah.
That's the statement. It doesn't. He didn't show that time, space, and matter all began to exist. Like, that's not a thing that Einstein ever did.
But if it didn't, then there must be one point where like the three are out of connection.
Or they always existed?
Yeah, so they're correlative.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Einstein's theory is entirely compatible with an empty universe with no matter at all. It would just be kind of boring.
But then how do you get like space-time to work?
You can have space-time without matter. There's nothing saying that you can't. It would just be a very boring space-time. But look, so there's a lot to read about general relativity. I would suggest that you read like something by Sean Carroll. I don't know what. Just find something by Sean Carroll and read it. He's a really good science communicator, and he's you know, in some sense more qualified than I am. So I would suggest that you read Sean Carroll. He's a philosopher and a physicist. So, you know, check that out.
But I don't think that you're going to be able to support premise number one of your argument. We've been at it for, I don't know, like 30 minutes.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So we've been at it for like 30 minutes, and you failed to support premise number one of the argument whatsoever. So I think at this point, it's time to move on to a new guest. We got a bunch of guests waiting to get in. So we appreciate you coming through, but you're always welcome to come back. But next time, maybe we'll talk about a different argument, and we'll see if that goes any further.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for being here, bud.
All right. Elizabeth, thank you for the $5 super chat. Elizabeth says, why does everyone here hate on Star Trek? I don't know, Elizabeth, why people...
No one hates on... Star Trek is amazing. Shut up, everybody.
I don't actually watch Star Trek, but I mean...
You should.
I do. I like the premise. I like the idea. Also, Johannes Brahms, thank you for the $2 super chat, says $20 Icon thinks his God is eternal, though. Yeah, we almost got there. We were like on the precipice of that argument before he pivoted again. And Aaron, good to see you, my good buddy. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Says reality is not obliged to be easy to understand. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Sometimes thinking about the nature of reality will melt the brain just a little bit. I've been there myself, and I think a lot of people are. But inventing a God to say, well, God did it, I think is the lazy way out. All right, we promised that we'd bring Vexiel in next, so we'll bring Vexiel in, and we'll just keep grabbing people as we can after that. A word of information: if you have your camera turned on, we'll probably prioritize you so that the guests aren't looking at a blank screen while we're talking. So, like, if you have a camera, we welcome you to turn your camera on.
Yeah, if you don't have a camera, you should invest in a good, like, VR tuber fursona, and then use that.
Welcome in, Vexiel.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How you doing?
I think I agree with you guys a lot more than I'm going to disagree. However, I kind of wanted to get Dr. Mann's opinion because I've just been listening to you guys, and Dr. I didn't catch his name.
Blitz? It's right there on the screen.
Says it on the
Dr.
screen.
Blitz, I really like what you said. I'm trying to remember. There's been so many people talking now. You said that the universe has always existed. That it's completely infinite. It's always existed. What is different from your opinion versus when religious people tell us, "Oh, God has always existed and always will be"? What is the difference between cornering a religious person and them saying that versus cornering a atheist and them saying that? Before I say that, I'm an agnostic person. I can go either way.
Yeah. So, and everybody here is qualified to talk on this particular matter, but just my particular position is that, look, the position that God always existed and that the universe always existed are the same in exactly one respect, that they both posit something that always existed. The point of difference, though, is that the idea of a God in really any kind of traditional conception, Western conception perhaps, is a being that is perhaps independent of physical reality and has a mind. And that's the point of contention. We don't think that thing exists.
Yep. I'll add to this a little bit. The context in which these arguments come up about whether or not the universe has a beginning, it's specifically when the theist has assumed the burden of proof and they are presenting an argument for why God exists, and they're proposing that the reason why he exists is for this. The reason why we don't believe in God is not because we think the universe always existed. Like, that's it's like we're giving defense to an argument that they're trying to present. So if it ends in a stalemate, that's fine. We have different, much better reasons to believe that God doesn't exist, and the reason for thinking that God does exist just failed. Additionally, there's the matter of simplicity, right? Simplicity dictates that we should prefer the theory which is the simpler one. It is simpler to believe that the universe existed and it's always existed, as opposed to believing that the universe exists and did not always exist, and then there's a God that did always exist. You have like two things. In the atheist worldview, you have one thing, whereas in the theist worldview, you need two things. But one thing does the job just fine, so we should probably prefer that all else equal.
Yeah, I guess when I joined the stream, you guys are saying God does not exist. I'm saying God could or could not exist. There is a potential for it. It's not that it does exist, and it's not that it doesn't exist. It's that it's somewhere in between. It can't. We don't have proof that it doesn't exist, but we also doesn't have proof that it does exist. While I also agree that you can't say a unicorn exists and then say, "Oh, well, prove that it doesn't exist" or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Because
Do you agree that all minds are attached to brains?
Yeah. And I don't want to
cool.
play
Then
some
God
gotcha
doesn't
that all
exist.
these other guys have been playing. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, then God doesn't exist, right? Because then God would be a mind that doesn't have a brain. So our inductions about the reality around us lead us to the conclusion that all minds have brains, but God would be a mind without a brain, which would just not be in line with any of our observed data. So we have a really strong case that that God doesn't exist just on that basis.
My mind just struggles with what you guys say on that the universe could potentially always must have existed, and something in my brain breaks when I hear that, because it doesn't make any sense when a Christian says it. It also doesn't make any sense when an atheist says it.
So Vexiel, I'm just puzzled that you say that, because like prior to the 1920s, that was the scientific consensus, that the universe always existed. Right. Like also, for basically the entirety of the 1800s, perhaps going a little bit further back to the 1700s, and then up until like 1926, that was the scientific consensus. And then even up until the 50s, it wasn't until the 50s that idea was like even considered dead. Now, it was considered dead for 40 years, 40 years or so, 30 years. But now it's like as far as scientific consensus goes, the idea that the universe had a beginning has been very short-lived, like 30 years maybe.
Also, Vexel, your connection is really bad. We're getting a lot of static from you. I had to mute you while Blitz and Ian are talking. Is there a way you can get like some Wi-Fi or something?
Can you guys hear me better now?
It's a little bit better with your camera off.
So I've pretty much learned a lot from you guys just listening. I'm gonna give somebody else a turn to speak. I really appreciate you guys and just all of what you guys are talking about. I think it's very important for our culture to understand the nuances of belief or not belief.
Right.
Yeah,
thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming up. Thank you so much.
All right.
Hey, thank you guys.
Cheers, Vex.
All right, we'll bring up Slayin' Saiyan next.
Yeah, Slayin's been waiting for a while, and Robert, thank you for the
bud.
$4 super thanks. We appreciate that. Big W, Robert.
Dude was absolutely fucking shredding. It was either like a guitar or a banjo.
All right, let's get Slayin up in here. Give me 1 second, Slayin. We'll get you. All right, Slayin, welcome in.
Said a banjo. It wasn't a banjo.
What was it?
It was hard to. It was close to the camera. Hard to tell.
It's a classic guitar, but that's
Okay.
all I got right now. I'm in a particular. Anyway, it's awesome been listening to y'all though. I got one. I just Dr. Blitz.
You gotta keep the cigarette off screen, my friend.
Oh, I got you. That's fine. Sorry.
If you want to turn off your camera, you can. By the way,
no, it's fine. I won't smoke. It's fine.
I kind of like his beer. I just don't want him smoking on screen.
Yeah, I won't smoke. It's fine. What's your field? What did you get your PhD in?
Physics.
No shit. Can I cuss? Is that cool?
You can cuss.
You can cuss.
Fuck.
Okay.
You won't go to hell if you do.
I was in the army. It's hard not in jail a lot. It's hard not to cuss. But anyway, so I read a lot. I've read a lot. I've been in jail. I read a lot, and I like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku and stuff like that. I really like.
Careful with Michio Kaku, by the way.
Yeah, I know he's out there. Yeah, he does support a lot of
It's a little
wild
fringe.
stuff. Yeah, for sure. But I'm glad y'all spoke about infinity a little bit, and this is all just something that I've come up with on my own. I didn't. This is just inspired from what I've read and what I've seen on YouTube and the internet and stuff like that. And so infinity, right? You what kind of infinity we're talking, or do you believe in? Is what I'm getting at. Like, what about universes? How you feel about the multiverse? Is that a thing that you would support? That you would?
I don't know about these guys. I don't generally.
I don't know enough about it to.
Yeah, I've never found the
render
multiverse compelling.
conclusion.
Okay, that's fine. So infinity, like how? So what is infinity? Is the universe infinite?
Could be.
Like we can't go to the edge of the universe to find out, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's certainly compatible with the data that we have. There's no reason to think that it's not this way.
Okay. So if the universe is infinite, right? And within infinity, the same thing with like the monkeys. If you have a infinite amount of monkeys in a room with an infinite amount of typewriters, eventually they're gonna write Shakespeare. They're gonna write everything, right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yep.
So if within so I love Superman. I like superheroes and fucking Spider-Man and Marvel, DC. I love all that shit. So so within that infinity, is there Superman out there? Is Superman out there?
It depends.
I'm saying
if it's physically possible, then sure. But
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's physically possible.
Well, right, still within the realm of it. Yeah, like I get what you're saying.
Like,
I get what
as
you're
an
saying.
example, like Scarlet Witch literally does magic. That's not physically possible. So she probably doesn't exist, right?
Okay. So there couldn't be different physics that we're unaware of in different parts of this infinite universe.
So there could be, but we don't have any reason to think that that's the case.
We don't have it. Well, yeah. How could we have that evidence though? That would be very hard to produce. How could?
Oh yeah. So Michael mentioned, Batman. If the universe is infinite, Batman absolutely exists.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, he might exist on Earth.
All right, cool. So if we can come to that, so then why can't a Judeo-Christian God exist? Why can't a Muslim God exist? Why can't why is that?
Because contradictions in no universe do contradictions exist.
Yeah, it breaks logic. That's why.
For the same reason Scarlet Witch doesn't exist, because magic isn't real, right?
Oh, fuck! I'm sorry.
It's okay. So what's interesting is that if it's true that, through some miracle of technology, that one could throw lightning bolts, then Zeus might exist.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
There was a Star Trek episode. There was a Star Trek episode about that, actually.
There is some form of infinity out there, man. Like if the universe is infinite, if the multiverse is infinite, it's out there. It's out there. It has to be. That's just because then there's also there would have to be states of matter and states of physics that exist that we don't know about yet, that we just can't detect, that we're just we're too far away from.
So look, my position, and I think it's probably the position of the other people on the panel, is roughly that if the universe is infinite, which it may be, may not be, if the universe is infinite, then we certainly have reason to think that everything that is compatible with our currently known laws of physics exists.
Yeah. Okay.
But the thing is we don't have any reason to believe that things that are not compatible with the currently known laws of physics exist. Because our currently known laws of physics might be true. They might not be, but unless presented otherwise, we should be at least agnostic, if not disbelieve.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. At least. That's my problem. See, everybody should at least be agnostic, at the least.
Because saying that you should be agnostic at the minimum, you should be atheist at the maximum.
Yeah. Say something does not exist is so I kind of got you there, but the thing
No,
is,
I think you misunderstood. I'm saying
maybe,
that
maybe
with the most belief that you should have is
Are you
agnosticism.
claiming atheism or agnosticism?
We claim
I'm an atheist.
atheism.
Yep.
But
What I'm
we
saying
think
is that-
everybody should be at least agnostic, given or on like the issue of like.
So
physics,
y'all are
for
not
example.
y'all say it's not even in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, because there's apparent contradictions.
Especially the Judeo-Christian God or the Muslim God. These ones like for sure don't exist.
Okay.
Like maybe Zeus is real. I'm agnostic about that.
Like an alien.
Yeah, like an alien, like Thor from Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Although I think in the comic books he just does magic. In like the movies it's like super advanced tech, but like in the comics it's just magic.
Yeah. Well, now it's tech in the comics, but when in the first,
yeah.
You got anything else? Otherwise, we should move
No,
on to.
yeah, that was it. I'm good.
All right.
Yep. Hey,
All
thanks so
sorry
much.
to keep you waiting, bud.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Well, he's a lot of
Let's
fun.
bring
All
up
right.
Jimmy J.
Yeah, it's time for Jimmy. We're gonna get Jimmy up in here. Give me 1 second. Oh. All right, Jimmy, welcome in. Jimmy?
I think he's getting his audio set up.
Yeah. Looks like he's got a real setup.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome in, Jimmy.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Doing good.
Doing well.
Good deal. Okay, so I don't have much longer. I've got maybe 5-10 minutes, but I'll
Sorry
just
about that.
some. No, it's okay. No, not at all. You guys are doing a good job. I like to talk. I like open minds. So I kind of feel like where Blitz is at is that if it's not physical, if I can't touch it, it's hard to put some belief behind it. But we have to look at things like antimatter, anti-gravity, gravity itself, things that we can try to perceive and put numbers on and come up with conclusions that exist. But there are things in the universe that you guys are agreeing exist that we cannot measure, but that we know are there. That theory and at least enough evidence has proven that it's possibly there, which would kind of be my same argument for why God has to possibly exist now, or is possibly real, because I think, on the label it says God isn't real. Now, if you said the word exist, then I would even agree. Even as a Christian, I would agree God doesn't exist. He's not in our existence, in our physical existence, right? So no, he doesn't exist here. Real? Define
Doesn't exist
real.
in reality.
Define reality.
Reality
all the
is
things that exist.
all things that exist.
Right. So exactly. So existence, physical existence. Do you
all
guys
things
agree
that exist are considered part of reality? So
Yeah.
But do you agree that there are things out there that we cannot measure, that are part of existence, that we cannot see, feel, touch, measure, but they're in our universe doing things that we can't describe? Would you give that
things
any
that we
slight
haven't-
possibility at all?
Well, I'm probably going to be of the opinion that all the things that exist in reality, these are things that correlate to like some phenomena. So in like some sense, they are measurable, or at least that there's like something observable that would indicate their existence. Otherwise, it just feels like we're adding like imaginary friends to our metaphysics. So all the things that you mentioned, like antimatter, gravity, these are labels that we give to specific phenomena, which is like measured phenomena. What phenomena does God explain that we couldn't explain otherwise?
So I guess my phenomena for God would be the fact that we exist. Funny, we got to come right back to that word. The fact that, and here's what I would say. If I had to say, what's your evidence for God, right? Because if we're going to say it's not real, then we've got to at least, you have to find evidence that disproves it. Not only do you to prove something is real or that it exists or that it's possible in science today, you don't first go after what proves that it exists. You go after all the things that can disprove it, right?
Well,
so
I'm not sure that's the case, but we can actually disprove the Christian God pretty quick. So when it comes to like imaginary beings, the burden proof is always going to be on the person claiming that the thing does exist. So, for example, if we're debating on the existence of the tooth fairy, well, the tooth fairy didn't leave evidence behind for us to validate that it doesn't exist, because entities that don't exist don't leave evidence. So the burden of proof is always going to be on the person claiming that the thing does exist. That being said, the Christian God is illogical and therefore doesn't exist.
But no, but for me, the God that I believe in has never again existed amongst us except for through Jesus Christ,
You
which
don't
was
exist at all, is what we're saying.
who was human
Yeah.
like us. Jesus Christ was never a person.
No, we're saying that your God was never in existence ever at all times.
In this existence, in this physical realm, in this universe.
No, just of
I would
all the
agree.
realms that exist. Because it feels like we're like narrowing the scope, and I'm not sure. I don't want to say you're like intentionally doing this, but it's making us like into like ships passing in the night. That's not what we're saying. We're not just making the claim that God doesn't exist physically. He doesn't exist like metaphysically either. He doesn't like in whatever
In
realm
all
God
realms,
exists.
in all multiverses, in all possible existences.
Yeah, we don't think God
Okay.
exists
Then-
anywhere
then
in
that
any
would
realm
mean-
under any
And
scope.
that would mean you're confining all other possible realms and multiverses and existences to the one you live in now.
To logic, yeah. Is God outside of logic?
No, not logic. We're talking about the physical and metaphysical realms. We can't logically explain either one of those. We can try to logically explain
Sure we can.
existence, and that's how we build buildings. That's how we get to math. But we can't logically explain the medical, physical, or the spiritual realm. Basically, what you guys
Well,
are
you
saying
have
is
to
can.
demonstrate that the spiritual realm existed
Zero-
before you can claim that we can't explain it. So, is
Well,
there
again,
a realm in which
are we talking?
is there a realm in which there's no logic or a different logic?
There has to be. If you believe in infinite realms, then there
So,
absolutely has
Is there
to
a
be.
realm in which there's a god that can create a rock so heavy that it can't lift it?
There would absolutely have to be.
Then can God lift the rock in this realm?
Why are you putting God in that realm? You just said God never existed.
Because you said, well, I'm talking about your worldview, right? So I'm just asking you, in this realm where God makes the rock so heavy he can't lift it, can God lift the rock that's so heavy he can't lift it?
Well, I don't know, but maybe in the realm where a God that made the rock he can't lift can just unmake the rock.
But
Therefore,
without
no need to
unmaking the
lift.
rock, can he lift the rock? Can he lift the rock that he can't lift?
So I'm not understanding what that argument is proving or disproving about.
It's yes or no.
What,
We're
What do you mean,
determining
can
whether or
he
not
ju-
God can do things that are illogical. So,
Yeah.
can
again,
your
you're
God
putting
lift? Can your
but
God
you're
make
putting a
atheism
weight
true
on it.
while still existing?
It has to be possible. You can, neither can be proven nor
It's
disproved.
possible
What
for
you
God to
just
make
did is saying-
atheism true while himself still existing.
The example of the rock, it means you're putting weight on the rock. Again, you're in a physical realm. The God that I believe in has to exist not in this
But
physical
this is a
realm.
logical argument. This is not a physical argument. Just stop worrying about the physical realm. We're talking about whether or not God can do logical impossibilities. So, is it possible for your God to make atheism true while still existing?
To make atheism true, no.
So then there's something your God can't do. Because it's illogical.
No,
Which means your God follows logic.
You're basically saying that my God doesn't affect your opinion.
No.
on
We're
that.
saying that your God can't do logical impossibilities, or else he could make atheism true while still existing.
But true or false that's a part of faith. Because
not.
you're talking about atheism, that's a belief, that's a thought.
True or
That's
false
not a
has nothing
physical.
to do with faith.
Yeah.
Atheism isn't a physical thing I can hold. I have to
Maybe I
put
can
faith or
clarify.
belief in atheism. Hey,
What
let me ask you
Justin is
guys this.
asking is-
Go ahead.
I
sorry.
can just clarify really quick. What Justin is asking is, can God make himself not exist while still existing?
Of course.
Then God's nonsense. Then God is nonsensical.
God
Okay,
can exist
but
and
there-
not exist at the same time. That's crazy.
Guys, the fact that we're alive talking to each other on the internet is nonsensical. Think about it. Okay,
It's
No.
perfectly
It
so let
makes
me ask
perfect
you this.
sense.
So let me ask you this. Right, but it's unbelievable. It's a miracle. The fact.
It's
Definitely
really
not
cool.
a
It's not
miracle.
nonsensical.
Okay, so let me ask you this: disprove that, or where's your evidence?
Burden
God
shifting,
isn't
W.
real.
Okay, I mean, if you believe in the Christian God, that's super simple. I think slavery is bad,
Not
actually.
burden shifting, just
always.
putting the evidence on you now.
Even if
So-
God says that you can do it, I still think slavery is bad. That's the evidence that he isn't real.
Yeah, because the revelation of this God is self-contradictory. So do you believe that slavery was bad at all times?
Hold on, no. You guys just said some things that you think. I need evidence that God isn't real.
Yeah,
where's the finite
it's in the
evidence
form
that's
of an
proven
argument,
it?
Jimmy. Listen up. Do you think that your God is all
How
good?
the fuck did this person?
What's going on? Oh yeah, I see. We've got Hamas in the guest box. We'll just drop them out.
Yeah, wait, I don't know why I could hear this person.
That's weird.
Yeah, me neither. Go ahead.
How the fuck did they do that?
There's a way to do that. Don't worry about it right now. We'll take care of it.
Is it something on my end? I'm not sure what you
No,
guys
it's not
are
you.
saying.
No, you're chilling.
No, it was not you.
He, So, anyways, do you believe that slavery was good or bad?
It's not good.
Was it ever good?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
I
it was
don't
never
believe the
good.
owning of people.
Okay, so was it good when God said you could do it?
When God said you could do it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
So God did something bad?
But I don't believe. I mean, where did God say you can do it?
Leviticus 25. It says, "As for the male
Go
and
ahead.
female slaves who you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property." And in the Hebrew, it actually says property forever, le'olam. It says you may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property.
Now you would have to look into that, because I've heard this a lot. You would have to go into it and look at what those people considered as property and possession and things like that. They did not treat them any kind of bad. They accepted them as their own people. Property and possession meant family, meant one another,
that's
meant
wrong.
each other.
It's not
Do you
even
beat the
it's
fuck out
not.
of your own
true.
people?
What's that?
Do you beat the fuck out of your own people?
No.
Well, they beat
no.
the fuck out of their slaves, so.
Some people did. Yeah, there are bad people in the world.
God said
So why
there's
did-
no punishment for it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't knock their teeth or their eyeballs out, you're allowed to beat your slave.
Well, do you spank your children, or any of you guys fathers?
I certainly
What?
don't spank my child. No.
Yeah, but okay, wait.
I
I don't
never
want to get bogged down into like the spanking conversation, right? You shouldn't be like physically like beating the fuck out of adults. I would hope we would agree.
No, 100%. I agree with that.
Okay, so
It's a
then
crime.
God was wrong when he said there's no punishment for doing that.
Sure. If you're going to tell me that that's a fact, that that's what God told his people to do, then yes, he was wrong.
Okay, cool. So then your God is self-contradictory, so it
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Hold on. Have you never contradicted yourself?
Am I God?
I'm not God.
No. Have you ever? You just said my God doesn't exist because he's self-contradictory.
Yeah.
So that means if I've ever contradicted myself, I don't exist?
That means you're not perfect. So God would be both
Okay,
perfect and also not
Right.
perfect, which is a contradiction. Contradictions don't exist. Therefore, your God doesn't exist.
No, I don't believe God is perfect.
So uttering a contradiction is different than being a contradiction.
You're
Okay,
a
so-
Christian, right?
I am.
There's a verse
Hey,
where it
wasn't
says that
Jesus
God is
perfect?
perfect.
yeah,
Isn't that like
there's-
the whole thing?
There's a bunch of verses that talk about God's perfection. One of my favorite is actually in Deuteronomy 32, where it says, "The rock, his work is perfect, and all of his ways are just. A faithful God without deceit, just and upright is he." So you have to believe that at a minimum that everything your God does is perfect, that he is completely just and upright and faithful.
Well, first off, you would have to define what perfect is. Is perfect something that's only always good?
Without
or is
flaw.
perfect something that's a complete equal balance?
It's
What's
without-
flawed? Define
without
flaw
flaws.
again. What define the flaw is what we think is bad or wrong or good for our existence in our universe. What I'm telling you that I believe is
Is
that
slavery
we
perfect?
cannot even begin to know what we can. I just said
Okay.
there's evil in the world.
So we'll just
cannot
try this
begin.
very quickly then. Deuteronomy 32:4 says, "All of his rock, his rock, he is the rock. His works are perfect. All of them are perfect." It uses the word in Hebrew tamim, which means completely unblemished, without tarnish, not a single thing missing. It is perfect. It is complete. So if
Right, but
if
what
everything God does is just and perfect, then that puts you in a position where now you have to agree that slavery was just and perfect. Or
No, I don't,
you have a
because what you
self-contradictory
guys are trying to
God.
do, is just completely ignore the fact that there is evil that exists in the world.
So what?
God didn't send his
But God
son
said you-
Jesus to
but
a
God
perfect.
said
Hold
you
on,
can
let me
do it.
finish, please. God didn't send his son Jesus to a perfect world that slain him on a cross. So that wasn't, the world wasn't perfect to begin with.
We're not talking about the
human
world. We're
existence
talking about
has never
God.
been perfect.
Yeah.
Talk about
Oh,
God.
oh.
We know the world's not perfect. We're talking about why your God said doing
So
slavery
if we're
was
God's
chill.
creation and we're not perfect, then no, God cannot be perfect.
Okay, so
I
God's
don't
not
understand
perfect. So
how
you
that's-
don't. Okay, so you don't.
So that
agree
doesn't
with,
mean he's not real.
So then you don't agree with the Bible says. Just say it. Say I don't agree with Deuteronomy 32:4.
I don't agree with what all the Bible says. That does not
Okay,
mean God
so
is not
now
real.
we-
I was
now
asking
we-
for your evidence
So
that
now
God
we're
isn't real.
cooking. Okay, so
On the screen, I know
the
we're
evidence
cooking.
Wait a minute.
started
On the screen
So-
right here, it says God isn't real.
I'm just confused now. So like, what if you're a Christian? What parts of Christianity do you believe? If not that God is perfect.
Please.
All right, so Dr. Blitz asked you a very easy question, Jimmy. We'd love to have you answer the question.
Like this is, I'm not trying to be
and then
like
maybe you'll
an
answer
ass or
mine
something.
after 5 minutes. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be an ass or anything. Like I've talked to a lot of Christians, and overwhelming. I don't think I've ever met a Christian who says that God isn't perfect. So it's just baffling when you come in and say that you are a Christian, but you
I'm
think
a
that God
child
isn't
of
perfect.
God, and I'm not perfect. So that's impossible.
But that's explained through the fall and the garden, right? Like that God created us perfect, but then the serpent deceived us, and then we fell, and now we're no longer perfect. That doesn't explain why God isn't perfect. So like, what part of Christianity do you agree with?
If God created a physical existence, a world where he wanted to experience his own power, right? A conscious world where God could then experience his own, his self in existence. We're God's consciousness. If he created a universe where all of a sudden some other energy, an evil energy, a bad energy could then intervene, then he didn't create a perfect world, which means he then therefore is not perfect. I don't know many Christians that say God are perfect, because we're his. If you believe you're a child of God, he didn't make you perfect.
But what parts of the Bible are true?
Yeah.
What parts of the Bible are true? Oh, I can't. I would have. I mean,
when the Bible makes claims about God, why should I trust it? Because you're telling me that when Deuteronomy makes a claim about God, that I shouldn't trust.
Well, I'm telling you that when Deuteronomy says something about I am just and my rock and perfect in these words, that somebody is translating something that they were being, either spoken to or that they felt or that.
Right, but I'm asking you, why should I trust what the Bible says when you, being a believing Christian, don't trust what it says?
Yeah, it sounds like the Bible is mad unreliable.
No, there are parts of the Bible that I'm sure are infallible. Yeah, not.
And how do you tell the difference between the parts that are infallible and the parts that are fallible?
Through prayer.
Because God reveals it to you.
No, but I just asked. I just asked to be guided because
my God, Doug, revealed to me that the Bible's not true. So he revealed it to me, so therefore it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but okay, now please, can we now answer your question? Now I would like one of you three to answer my question, because all I heard was self-contradictory means he's not real.
Yeah,
not
true.
in the physical realm means he's not real. So tell me, where's your evidence that it's not real? Because I have evidence that things that we can't see, touch, feel, hear, measure, that they are real, but we can't see, touch them, feel them, hear them, but we know that they're real. Gravity, antimatter,
we can measure all those
black
things.
matter. No, we can't.
Yes, we
have
can
no
literally
physical
measure
tool that
gravity.
measures those things.
By the way, it's dark matter, not black matter. Common confusion.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. It's just you're not the only one.
But Blitz, you've got to be, and Blitz, you've definitely, because I feel like you're the one that's more into the physicality and the physical and metaphysical realms. You have to admit
I hate
that
metaphysics.
there are things out there. Well, okay, even in our physical universe, there are things out there that you can't touch, see, feel, hear, acknowledge, use, get into, think you can't. But
that's
it's
not
real.
why we think God isn't real.
So just to respond.
So please, where's the proof? So you just said you think God isn't real. I like that you use the word think, because you don't know he's not.
I think and I know it.
So just to address the point that everything that I think is like a real thing, like I think that electrons are a real thing, right? Like I think that stars are a real thing. These are all things that we definitely can measure and observe and detect. I mean, maybe you can't smell them because electrons don't really have a smell, but you can measure them in other ways. Now there are other things like dark matter, dark energy, white holes. These are things that I'm generally agnostic about, because there's theoretical physics that suggests that they are real, but we don't have data to support them, so I'm agnostic about it.
So that would be my argument to what the younger gentleman was just saying. Sorry, I can't really see your guys' names on there.
You're
So sorry. Okay, so that would be my argument is that you can't. What was it that you just last said? I'm sorry. Right
I said I'm agnostic.
No, right. No, but
do you mean like that's not the reason why we think? Yeah, me not seeing, touching, feeling God is not the reason why I don't think he's real. I don't think he's real because he's contradictory.
Okay, but that's your thought. That's not physical proof. Where's the evidence?
So wait. So now you do want it to be physical.
Well, no, that would be my argument.
So the way we determine metaphysics is through logic. God is logically contradictory. He is in violation of the law of non-contradiction. So unless you reject the law of non-contradiction, you reject basic logical precepts and you fall into absurdity, then you have to reject that God is real. It's really as simple as that. And you either fall into absurdity or you acknowledge that God isn't real.
Also, we already covered the physical evidence part. Things that don't exist don't have physical evidence. This is how existence works. That's why there's no physical evidence for the tooth fairy or for pixies or anything else that doesn't exist.
Right. So that's what I mean. Anything that you can't touch, see, hear, feel, measure, it's not real. That's your belief. That's your thought. That's your opinion. That's still not any evidence toward God not being, I guess, what you could, because again, I explained God not being.
I don't think you actually understood what Ian just said, and Ian said it twice now. So just because there's no physical evidence for non-existence doesn't mean that you can't apply logic to it. So if your God is self-contradictory, if your God is illogical, then definitionally speaking, it can't exist because the laws of logic, as far as we can tell, are unbreakable.
Okay, so here's where some of my evidence would be. The fact that we're in a universe that exists and we're able to talk to each other, and that all throughout all of mankind, throughout all of human history that we know of, we have believed in some sort of higher power, some sort of creator, some sort of God. Oh. Is that not enough? Is that not every human predecessor before you has wrote down or believed in or imagined or created from amongst themselves and amongst them people some kind of creator and higher power? So you're saying every predecessor before you and every civilization before us was illogical and fallible?
Almost everybody in the world prior to the modern age believed that the earth was flat. Does that mean the earth is flat?
Yeah. And that slavery was good.
Yeah,
do any of you guys have the number on the amount of people on the planet today that believe the Bible is real and that believe God is real?
Nobody cares.
It could be literally all of them. Doesn't matter.
You said you don't care. I'm saying, do you know the number?
It doesn't matter. It's an appeal to majority.
It's probably about 60%.
But you guys are talking about logic.
It could be 16 squintillion.
Jimmy, you already said you don't believe the Bible is real, so you just defeated your own argument.
I said I don't believe every word in it is solid.
Right,
fact.
you believe the parts.
I didn't say it's not real. The Bible's real. I've read.
By the way, can I just interrupt for a second here, Jimmy? And this is not like an attack or anything. Do you think think evolution's real?
Like that we came from apes?
That there's a common ancestor with us and chimpanzees, for example.
Sure, but I can believe that things evolved from things and still believe in a higher creator.
Yeah, absolutely. No. So I just want to say I do appreciate that, there are some people who take the Bible literally and then throw out everything that we know about the natural world. I appreciate that you don't. I just wanted to say that I appreciate that about you.
No worries. And listen, and that's another thing that, and I can't, and that's kind of my argument. The same way that I can't sit here and prove to you that the God I believe in and what I feel and my spiritual belief in being, the same way that I can't have any evidence to prove to you that he's real, you can't show me or tell me a thing that proves he's not, other than your thoughts. You didn't.
He violates logic.
You said violates logic and is self-contradictory.
Can the sun both exist?
Every human predecessor before either one of you guys, Ian, has believed in a higher power and a creator.
No one cares.
But Justin, you're just saying no one cares.
No one cares that a lot of people
doesn't
believe
matter.
60% of the people on Earth today believe it.
Don't care.
Cool. Doesn't matter.
So you're calling them all self-contradictory.
They're wrong.
Illogical.
No, they're just wrong.
Well, yeah, they're wrong.
You're saying they're wrong.
They hold an
you have
incorrect
no proof,
belief.
Is my point.
Yeah, we've already laid down the proof and it went over your head.
Yeah.
You've told me a lot of what you think. You've shown me no proof.
I expect this from a Cowboys fan.
How about we get off the Ramble roller coaster and we take a walk down linear lane? Is there any evidence for your God? Yes or no?
Physical evidence or
Any evidence.
Any evidence.
Any
even
evidence.
a logical
I
argument.
just said it. Justin, you just said about things going over people's head. I literally said within the last 2 minutes that every human person that we know of,
That's
and that
not
we
an
have tracked,
argument. That's just
all
a
our humankind believes in a higher.
That's literally a logical fallacy. That's just an appeal to popularity. That means nothing. If Islam becomes the largest religion next year, does that mean that Christianity is true because Islam is larger?
You do realize that.
That was a question. If Islam becomes larger next year than Christianity, meaning more people believe Islam than Christianity, does that make Islam true and Christianity wrong?
No, but
okay, because people believing things alone in mass doesn't make it true. A lot of people believing something doesn't make it true. Do you understand the basis of this appeal that you're making?
I said it's evidence that
it's not evidence. We'll try this again. It's a yes or no question. Do you understand that a lot of people believing a thing does not make the thing true?
Yes. So would you say the Big Bang is true?
I'd say the evidence leads us to that, not the fact that people believe it.
Okay, what evidence?
What?
The cosmic microwave background radiation, the baryon acoustic oscillations, the observed ratio between helium and hydrogen, the observed large-scale structure of the universe, the recession velocities of galaxies. Those are like the top 5.
Right. These are all things that we perceive. These are all theories.
Yeah, we have like telescopes and stuff.
If you believe in the Big Bang, then you have to believe in a beginning of creation.
Nope.
Yep. No, were you here for this? So we did have this conversation, but you might have not been here for this.
No, I actually was here for this, and I have several sources cited right here. There was no pre-existing space-time before the event, the Big Bang.
Here comes the quote mining.
In a hypothetical Big Bang atom. Say again?
I said, here comes the quote mining.
Yeah, where's the quote from?
Let's see. Institute of Physics, New Scientist, Journal of Big History. Those are the first 3 that I found. It was a singularity. It was a singularity event, and there was nothing that we consider space-time existing pre it.
Would it convince you?
Pre-Big Bang, there was no space-time.
There was.
Well, would it convince you otherwise if I pulled up physicists saying otherwise?
Well, but where the physicists? But so would it prove you otherwise if I bring up the physicists saying what I just said?
No, because I don't appeal to authority. So the reason I say this is because so I am a physicist, right? Like that's my day job.
Okay.
And so within the field, we're allowed to disagree, but there is no consensus on the matter, right? Like there are some physicists, maybe somewhere around half, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, who think that the universe did have a beginning. Usually these people think that the universe came from nothing.
And then there's about...
It's almost like Dr. Blitz was talking.
And so there's just no consensus on the matter, right? Like there are some physicists who think the universe did have a beginning, some that don't. I personally lean towards it not existing, just because there seems to be a lot of the requirements, or a lot of the things that used to lead people to think that it did have a beginning. These kinds of pieces of evidence are falling apart. We now have better reason to think that they're not as good anymore. Like there is something that William Lane Craig and a lot of creationists like to cite, something called the BGV theorem, which was this big mathematical thing that proved that if a universe has always been expanding, then it has a beginning. There was a paper that came out last year that found a hole in the argument, right? So that's just not a trustworthy point of data or point of evidence anymore. There's also things about we used to think that the universe had a beginning because we thought that singularities were real, that the Big Bang singularity was a real thing. And then things like loop quantum gravity came around in the 80s. That seems to imply that these are not real things, actually. And at least in loop quantum gravity, there's a good reason to think that instead of having a Big Bang, you had a universe that collapsed in on itself and then re-expanded. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might think that why you might reject the old evidence that the universe did begin to exist. There's just not... And there might be some good reasons to believe that it did exist. There's just not a good consensus here. The jury is still out.
No, I hear you. And that's funny. And I wasn't trying to be rude or interrupt you earlier. And that's when I was younger, I used to use deja vu as my evidence to try to prove the cycle theory, right? The universal cyclic theory that was the Big Bang is just a basically instant snap of a finger happening over and over again But this is a quote here from the Institute of Physics, and it says, the idea of before the Big Bang is not meaningful within our current understanding of physics.
Yep.
So everything that exists within the Big Bang, there was nothing before it. That's
Yeah, I'm just saying that that seems like it's a simplified understanding of what's actually going on.
Sure. And again, and this is what I hear a lot of, is that I lean to, I think this, I did, and that's where I'm getting at is I understand, guys, we're all just trying to understand and learn and figure it out. We're all trying to. But again, I hear a lot of I lean toward, I think this, I feel this, without the proof of I know this and this proves God is real.
Wait, hold on. Because misplaced certainty doesn't make you more correct. It actually makes you twice as wrong. You're ignorant on the matter, and you're ignorant to your ignorance. This is Socrates' great lesson, is that when you don't know something, the correct position to take is to say, I don't know, and to qualify your level of knowledge. Saying that you know, saying that you're certain when you're not certain, does not make you more correct.
I don't know that God is real. I believe it. You don't know that God isn't real. You believe it. That's
I do know that God isn't real.
How do you know that God isn't real?
Agnostic generally to a lot of cosmology things, but what I'm not agnostic to is that there are contradictions in the Bible and that contradictions don't exist in reality. Therefore, the Bible couldn't possibly be true.
Well, hold on. It should be as easy as this. If it's that easy to just know that God isn't real, it should be as easy as me saying, how do you know God isn't real? And then you saying something that makes everyone around you go, oh yeah, duh. Well,
that's not how human cognitive biases work, unfortunately. I could show you all the contradictions in the Bible, and it wouldn't change your mind probably even a little bit, because what you care about is your social identity. It's not actually the truth of the matter.
Right, but I can show you truths and facts in the Bible. It wouldn't change your mind.
Just
so
because
again,
the Bible
that's what
says
I'm
a true thing doesn't make the entire book true. Like I can
and just
read
because
you
it says a false thing doesn't make the entire book false.
And I can read you the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you can agree that the cedar forest of Lebanon exists, but you're certainly not going to agree that there is a cherub guarding the cedar forest named Humbaba that was executed so that they can chop down the trees of the gods. You don't think that actually existed, but you do think that the cedars of Lebanon exist, right?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Justin, you have read way more than me. All right, I'm just telling you what I believe, and I'm just asking you guys for the evidence that it isn't. And
and we gave you a great logical argument for it, and you didn't understand it. It's okay.
Logic. Well, that's your thoughts. That's your logical conclusion.
Contradictions don't
that's not
exist.
evidence. Your logical conclusion isn't evidence, though, is my point.
That is evidence. Yeah.
So I got a question. Why are there lies in the Bible?
The same reason there are truths.
So your God couldn't preserve his word? He thought, well, fuck it, we'll just let man do whatever he wants?
God didn't write the Bible, man did.
Okay, so why do you trust anything in the Bible?
Wait, why wouldn't God write the Bible? If it's the word of God necessary for your salvation, why wouldn't he write the Bible? That seems like an important work that you wouldn't want to leave up to people who are going to fuck it up.
And that's why there are words that are separated too. And that's why there are scriptures who talk about the deceiving of words, the deceiving of scripture. That's why there are words in red that were quoted.
Why wouldn't God write it is the question. Why wouldn't God just write the book himself, make it a definitive final version? Why would he allow it to be corrupted?
But I can't tell you the real reason. No one knows. I can tell you what I believe is the reason.
Sure. What's the reason why you believe that God wouldn't just give us like a full, complete Bible that doesn't get corrupted? Why wouldn't he come up with a new edition of the Bible every single year?
Because then how would you have free will?
Free will has nothing to do with whether the Bible can be preserved.
Yeah, you can choose to believe it or not believe it.
Right, a choice. It's almost like as God didn't give you that choice, he would.
So you could have So you could have free will. Perfect. We agree. So why didn't God do that?
What, to remove free will? Wouldn't that be...
No, you already conceded just now that this wouldn't remove free will, that God could have written the book himself, that he could even update the book consistently. Wait, so when people first were given the Bible, when they interacted with God, did that take away their free will?
But who would be writing it is what I'm asking.
Wait, did the disciples have free will?
Sure. That's why some of them betrayed Jesus and God. Yeah, of course.
So, famously, you can either choose to follow God, even if he reveals himself to you, or you can choose not to, so you do have free will, even if God does reveal himself to you, which means that God could have given us a new edition of the Bible every single year, or he could have just given us one that was like true, eternal, unchanging, and then just not let it get corrupted. So why wouldn't he do that?
I don't question him, but again,
It doesn't make
I would
any
say
sense.
nothing that
It makes no
But it
sense.
not making sense is not evidence that it is absolutely 100% not real, and there's no chance it is.
It's really
Nothing
good
you guys have
evidence that we should
said.
be
Actually, it really
extremely
is good
skeptical to
evidence,
it.
yeah. The fact
Sure,
that
it's good
the
evidence.
fact that your
Okay,
God
now, hold
breaks
on,
the
real
laws
quick,
of
Justin.
logic,
Now,
and the
please.
fact that your book is self-contradictory is very good evidence that it's not from God and that your God doesn't exist.
So let me ask you this, Justin. So you're going to sit here and tell me, and I've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, guys. You're going to sit here and tell me that that something contradictory written in a book is good evidence, but the fact that almost all of mankind have believed in one thing is that's stupid evidence. That's
No, I'm not
nothing.
saying that it's good
No, because you
evidence.
completely dismissed it earlier.
I'm not saying
You
it's
said
good.
it doesn't matter, Jimmy.
I'm not
Wait, let
saying
me-
that
I
it's
can-
good evidence
speak to
because it
that.
was written in a book. I'm saying that the book that is purportedly from God is saying things that are untrue. So if a book that is from God is saying things that are not true, then I have no reason to believe the God that book is purporting to detail.
Again, reason to believe, think, leaning toward, thought. No, you guys
It's
have
just
said
over his head.
nothing.
He has no
that-
idea what the argument is. He's lost.
No, I
So-
don't.
so
You've
Jimmy,
you've
just-
given no
just for-
physical evidence today,
just for
guys, that God
clarification.
isn't real.
So when I and Ian and Justin use the words like I think or it seems, that's like just the language of humility. It's just like, essentially saying this is what seems to be true to us. But if you can prove us wrong, great. Or if you can show contradictory evidence, great. Like I don't think anybody here is dogmatically like against God or anything like that. If somebody
Yeah,
came
of
up here
course.
and provided us with this perfect argument that God existed, then we'd be like, well, I guess we're Christians now or whatever. So it's just a humility thing. Like don't take it
that's a
to
good
mean that
point.
we're like wishy-washy. That's all.
No, and I'm not at all. I'm just taking it to say that, like, it's the words are wishy-washy, right? And not that y'all are trying to be. It's just when you say I lean toward or nothing. I feel like you guys have said is actual evidence. You said it's self-contradictory and defies logic.
Do you
Well,
think that
logic
contradictions exist?
Say again.
Do you believe that something that is contradictory, that thing exists? If I told you that,
Yeah.
if I told you that I have a rock in my hand that both exists and doesn't exist at the same time, does that rock exist?
Well, I don't know. You've told me two separate things, so now I've got to search for evidence to prove or
no.
dis-
If the rock
disprove one or the other.
exists and doesn't exist at the same time, am I holding that rock in my hand?
Could the rock both exist and not exist at the same time?
No, in our physical realm, no, you can't
Right,
exist and
yeah,
not exist. No.
Because it's illogical for something to exist and not exist at the same time.
Could God both exist and not exist at the same time?
God, no, God exists. God.
Well, but could he
define,
exist and not exist at the exact same time?
Not if he always exists. No.
Oh, okay, cool. So then God does obey logic, which means that if he both existed and didn't exist, that would be an impossibility, which means that we could conclude that God doesn't exist if he's contradictory. We demonstrated that he's contradictory. Therefore, we've demonstrated that he doesn't exist.
Hold on. Just because I say that he exists and doesn't, what are you using to say God exists and doesn't exist?
Ian, logic is not
I'm saying
for
he
everybody.
does. You're saying he.
Yeah.
I'm saying he does. You're saying he doesn't.
All right, listen, Jimmy, I don't think you actually packed the right equipment for this hike, and I don't think you understand the arguments that we're laying down, and you're about 30
I don't think
minutes.
anyone in the chat did.
You're about 30
because
minutes
you
past
guys
your
never
10 minutes.
said anything.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next guest, but we appreciate you coming up.
No, hey, I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, cheers, man.
Find some evidence.
Have a good one, Jimmy.
Yeah. I have a hard out in like 15 minutes, but
All right, well,
I
we
can
got
stay on for the next one.
we got Milk's been waiting for a while, so we'll get Milk up in here, and then we'll let Ian go do what he needs to do. And what
Yeah.
time is it? It's already 12. Oh my goodness. been live for a while.
Time flies when you're explaining basic concepts.
Aaron, thank you for the $10 super chat. We appreciate that. It says, guess,
Thank you, Aaron.
do you care whether or not your beliefs are true? If so, which is more reliable, using science and logic or just believing on faith? And that's really what he was doing at the end of the day. He was believing something on faith and saying, unless you can provide material evidence against my faithful belief, then my faithful belief is just true by default. But that's not how things work. Also, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Pro Amateur. It says the Bible is the starting point to know the only God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you would be incredibly wrong. But thank you for the super chat. And Displaced Gamer, good to see you today, buddy. Thank you for the $10 super chat. It says, why do Christians not understand getting to the present from an infinite past, but they still want to say God can do timeless actions? Atheists must explain time, but Christians never have to. Well, remember, when you have a God, then time and existence and anything is just automatically possible because God can do literally anything except for the things that he can't do.
Yeah.
And Dr. Joe, good to see you, friend. Dr. Joe says, to be fair, married bachelors exist every day on dating apps. Oh!
That's really funny.
Bazinga.
That's a good one.
Checkmate atheist. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. Great to see you. Guys, Dr. Joe's a friend of mine. She's got her own channel here on YouTube and TikTok as well. So Dr. Joe's a licensed therapist with a PhD. So if you need therapy after you've deconstructed from toxic religion, hit up Dr. Joe. So we've got
me a good therapist.
I know. Everyone needs a good therapist now and then. We got Milk with us. Milk, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
thanks for waiting.
Hi. So my name is Jacob. I am I'm actually a PhD student with Liberty University. So I'm kind of
Fascinating.
I am an agnostic. I am a student of communication. So a bit of a different field there than physics. Mainly what I wanted to talk about, though, was the fact that, well, first of all, a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about has actually already been talked about, such as the validity of theories and things of that nature. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up that I think would have been useful in the previous argument is that I think one of the big hurdles that Christians have when having conversations like this, and this is not an insult or anything like this, I think it's more of a learning point, is that you have to realize that there are Christians that challenge the word of God every day. And there's publications out with that. I mean, a literal British bishop wrote the book on Honest to God, which was challenging the idea that God is not this omnipresent, omnipotent being, rather that he was more of an observer.
And Milk,
so
are you a Christian?
I am agnostic. I
Okay.
do come from a Christian background. But unfortunately, due to some personal circumstances, I left the church years ago.
Yeah, so and I totally agree, right? Like I think that the Abrahamic gods specifically, like the way that they're written in the Bible, completely indefensible. Like I think that it's just like a brutal uphill battle to try to defend the God, like the most common conceptions of God. But I think that you also lose something when you move to different conceptions of God, which is that they just don't explain anything anymore. Like, I don't know. I have literally no reason to think that a God who's an observer exists. That doesn't even like make a lot of sense. Like, I'm not sure like what this God is driven by. Like, why he would even create at all. Why he wants any of this in the first place. I guess I just don't think any of that really makes sense.
No, I agree. The point of me saying that was more of saying that I believe that Christians should challenge their own ideologies if they want to, in their beliefs, if they want to grow closer to God. One of the things that they should do is they should question exactly what they're looking at when they read the Bible. I mean, one of the points that was in the last argument was that, well, the Bible was written by humans. All right, well, then how do I, as a human that has the capacity to critically think, examine the Bible then? How do I change my views to better follow what I still believe is my Lord and Savior? I think that there's a fear amongst people in that religion, obviously, to challenge the Word of God. And so you get this repetitive argument of, well, it's completely grounded in faith. You have to believe 100% of the time. Otherwise, it is an infliction. It is an absolute sin that I'm committing right here, going against my God. whenever it could be a lot healthier for your religion. One of the things that I wanted to ask you,
Justin,
though,
I think we got another video. Do you want to drop this video?
Oh yeah, let me get rid of this guy. Did I hear you correctly when you mentioned that you have a Lord and Savior?
Not me. No.
Okay, just make sure.
I was talking more of a metaphor. Okay. So one of my questions is, as a student right now, one of the things that you have to constantly do is you have to respond to criticism on theories. You have to create your own criticisms of theories and things of that nature. We were very early on. We were discussing things such as the quantum eternity theorem. So whenever it comes to criticisms like that are like actual valid criticisms, such as one of the criticisms, and I am a communications student. I am not going to profess for a moment that I am an expert in quantum mechanics, physics, or anything like this. It's more of, how do you respond to criticism such as the theory is based a lot on something? I'm just looking at some criticisms right here. That this is the wrong tab, actually. Apologies.
Are you looking for Aaron Wall's critique?
I am not. I'm gonna be very honest. I stumbled across the stream, and I was just very, very interested, and so I decided to come on. I have it behind me. So that there is, there's the criticisms that there is no direct proof of eternity and that it's purely theoretical. Now, I know that that's very vague, but when responding to criticisms like this, like there's a lot of it that's based on assumption. How do you respond to that? Like, from a scientific point of view, because again, I'm more into social sciences rather than something that's physical.
So there's essentially, so the thing about the quantum eternity theorem is that it's a theorem, right? It's mathematically true. Mm-hmm. So a theorem in mathematics, for those who don't know, is a statement that if you accept a certain set of premises, then the conclusion must follow. Mm-hmm. It's like a logical deduction. So there are roughly 3-ish premises. The first is that quantum mechanics works, right? Okay. And that's like an empirical question that we can just answer. It seems to work. We have strong evidence that it works. The second is that the universe evolves quantum mechanically.
Sorry.
Like the universe as a whole rather than like the individual pieces in it.
What do you mean by evolves quantum mechanically? Like, just simplify that for me if you can.
Yeah. So what I mean is, so we typically think of quantum mechanics as like describing like single particles or like systems of particles, but it's at least reasonable to conclude that quantum mechanics applies to everything on all scales rather than just the small scales. It's just at the small scales that's where we see the most quantum behavior. So there's a second assumption that our universe as a whole evolves according to the same set of equations that like electrons do. That's an assumption, but it's pretty well justified, at least from like a theoretical point of view. And then there's the third assumption that the universe has a non-zero total energy. Now, it sounds like it obviously has non-zero total energy, but this is actually something that's somewhat contentious. And so this is, if you want to criticize the quantum eternity theorem, this is the thing that you have to criticize, basically. You have to criticize that, well, we don't know that the universe has a non-zero total energy or that it even has a well-defined energy. If you can't prove that, then you're stuck. And that is the thing that, while it's plausible that it has a non-zero total energy, we don't know that for sure. And so that is the one assumption that if it's going to fail, it'll be that one.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question, because a lot of science we have to take criticism all the time with. I had to criticize media dependency theory last week and make it a narrative piece. But another one is let's consider the Big Bang. One of the things at the Big Bang that I've heard before that has that there's an issue is that it has a in comparison to the I'm going to mumble here. The Judeo-Christian God. Is that whenever we talk about the Big Bang, well, the criticism that you can find there is that there is there's a hard point in finding a starting point, and it also contends with the fact that there's something that in that theory that is the speed of light. one of the things that I would hear a Christian justify against this is that, well, whenever you think about how the universe is created, how the things are based, some things are so complex, so finely tuned that it's as if it was created. And I contend that other theories, that such as chaos theory, contend with that notion. Couldn't we, I know it seems a bit nihilist, but couldn't we just be the result of small changes throughout the universe that ultimately lead to the big changes that lead to what we ultimately become? I mean, really, really quickly, this is a silly like comparison, but
it'll have to be the last thing, by the way, because we do have another guest that we want to get to. So go ahead.
No problem. I'll be very short. The silly example though is Jurassic Park. I bring up chaos theory because the way that it's explained in Jurassic Park is through Ian Malcolm's examination of ecosystems. You have one small thing change and everything else falls apart or create something completely new. I think that if we were to look at any sort of infinite timeline, we can see that whatever creates the present is just a massive amount of events that are affected by small, sometimes large events that ultimately create what we know now.
Yeah, I mean, sure. In fact, almost every system is chaotic. Mm-hmm. The systems that are not chaotic are the ones that are wildly simplified. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's just a feature of our reality that we have to deal with, and that's what makes physics hard.
Yeah, you get more than like, I don't know, you get any number
you get more
of
than
variables.
more than two gravitating masses, and you're screwed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me on here. I know that this wasn't exactly a debate, but I really enjoyed being able to talk with you guys about something that I know very little about. So
thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're polite and kind. We appreciate that.
Yep.
No problem.
Now, Ian, you have to go. We're going to take on one more guest.
I do.
Yeah. Unless
I appreciate. Fuck. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll stay for just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Because Michael has been waiting for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I feel bad.
Michael's been so patient, and I know it sucks waiting in line, Michael, but we had a lot of people wanting to get in.
No worries. That's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, no worries. Appreciate first-time listener, first-time caller. Nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you.
I wanted to ask a couple questions and also present an argument as well. So I guess my first question would be, what does it mean to prove something? What would you guys consider?
Just demonstrate as true. I mean, so I guess there's like two senses of proof, right? There's like the strict mathematical sense, which is like, you deduce it from like premises that follow like a valid inference rule, and that's like fine and good. But in terms of like proof, we're also open to just like evidence that would indicate that that this thing is true. Evidence that makes like perfect sense under theism, but makes no sense under atheism. For example, like if someone, I don't know, proved that the resurrection was true, that makes no sense under atheism, but that probably makes a lot of sense if Jesus is like the Son of God. Right. So that's what we mean by prove, is just like demonstrate that something is like plausibly true.
Okay. So I guess from my perspective, right, to prove something would mean to demonstrate that it is true beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Like there's no real reasonable way that at least in a legal sense, that's kind of what we would use maybe, right?
Yeah, that's a fine standard, I guess.
I mean, that just sets like a higher bar for you, right?
Well, it does. It does. And I think that's kind of why I'm giving myself an escape hatch right at the beginning, because I don't know that it is possible to prove, right, that beyond a reasonable doubt that God exists. But what I could do is I could present you with an argument that I find somewhat convincing that I'm sure you may not.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a Christian, so I want to argue for the existence of the Judeo-Christian God, and specifically Jesus. And so I guess my first premise would be that the disciples of Jesus were in a position to know whether or not the claims about him were true, right?
How do you know that?
Well, from the works of, the Jewish historian Josephus, from secular sources.
What did Josephus say about the disciples?
So before we get into that, I just want to hear the full argument, if that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then we can talk about the premises.
So, yeah, and feel free to go out. I'm sure there's some that you'll want to go after more than others. But Let's assume Jesus was a real person, right? I think we can. That's maybe my premise 0. The disciples were in a position to know whether or not these claims about him were true. Many of these disciples suffered great persecution, martyrdom, poverty, imprisonment, right, for these beliefs. And generally speaking, people do not willingly die and be martyred for something that they know to be false, right? People will die for things that they believe to be true, but not things that they know for a fact are false, right? That would kind of be contradictory to human behavior, as far as I'm concerned, right? So premise 4 would be that the disciples genuinely believed the gospel was true. They believed that Jesus did, in fact, resurrect from the dead. And their belief, premise 5, in that truth was based on firsthand experience with Jesus, including his resurrection, right? Because I'm just putting myself in their shoes, right? If I thought he had come back from the dead, like if the tomb's empty, I'm not dying for that. But if I see the guy and he talks to me, maybe now I'm willing to get burned alive because I'm convinced that there's another life after this one. You know what I mean?
So just to summarize, so your argument is essentially like the disciples believed that he was the Messiah, that he was the Son of God, what have you. They were in a good position to be accurate with their beliefs regarding him. Therefore, It's plausible that he actually did what he said he did, or what they said he did. Roughly that's it?
Plausible, yes.
All right, Justin, by all means.
Oh, okay. Wait. Actually, this is because we're now deep into argumentation theory. So this argument is known as like an argument from position to know. The correct classification of this argument, it's not deductive or inductive, but it is abductive. So it's like an inference to the best explanation.
I guess
and
so.
all right, with that, I'll let
induction.
Justin take it away. I have nothing else to contribute.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so what was premise number 1? We'll start there because I think most of the premises actually I don't think will be supported very well.
Well, I guess premise 1 was that Jesus of Nazareth is a real person who lived on this planet and existed and was widely known.
I actually would grant that. I think the details about his life are hard to nail down, but I would grant you that he existed.
Great pun. It would be hard to nail down.
Oh, don't you dare!
You can't laugh at that, Michael. You're going to hell.
Don't you start that? Don't you
No,
start that? Okay. The disciples of Jesus were in a position to know whether or not their claims about Jesus were true.
Okay.
Let's say.
I think that's the first premise that I would disagree with, because what we know about the disciples is really hard to detail as fact. For example, even the names of the disciples appear to be possible literary fiction. The names of the disciples show up elsewhere outside of the Bible as different names. The only literature we have that talks about their experiences outside of the Bible come from like hundreds of years later, except for we hear a little bit about Peter and Paul from First Clement. So that being said, when we say like the disciples were in a position to know a thing, I would first ask is, how do we know that they were in that position? How do we know who they are? So
I think you brought up an interesting point, right? You said that our first accounts of these disciples comes hundreds of years later. So who was the Greek historian, the famous Greek historian?
There's a bunch of them. Herodotus is probably the most
Herodotus, right? So how many years after Herodotus's death do his works start to show up?
Right. No, I'm not talking about the manuscripts yet.
Years, right?
We're not talking about the manuscripts. We're talking about the existence of the people, right? So we have people from Herodotus's lifetime that are talking about Herodotus and quoting his works and things like that, right? But that doesn't mean
the disciples too, right? Is people from...
Michael, you're missing the forest through the trees. I never suggest that we know things about Herodotus, right? What I'm saying is we can conclude that he existed. And the mundane claims about him, I'm willing to accept. Same thing with the Jesus and the disciples. I agree that they probably existed. I'm saying that what we know about them is hard to ascertain because the documents we have that mention them don't always agree. They're written hundreds of years later by people who weren't there, and they say incredible things that even you wouldn't believe. So, for example, in the testimony of Peter being crucified upside down on the cross, that in that same testimony, He empowers a dog to give a speech, and he empowers a little baby sucking at his mother's teat to give a speech. And then there's a magic duel between Peter and Simon Magus.
I've never heard that. That is amazing.
It's in the Apocryphal Acts of Peter. And Simon Magus flies through the air, and Peter has to do a magic trick to knock him down out of the air, and he falls to the ground and breaks his hip. And this is the same document that tells us how Peter was crucified upside down. So the documents we have that tells us about the life of these disciples are full of crazy things that people wouldn't accept.
Okay, so do you make a distinction between those things that are not considered scriptural and the scripture that we have today? Right? Like, is there a distinction between things that all Christians agree are not scripture and cannot be fully trusted, and things that Christians believe can be trusted?
Well, I think you guys would make that delineation, but I wouldn't, because I can go to the Bible and I can find stuff in the Bible that mirrors what we find in those apocryphal texts. Like the Bible says things that are untrue all the time, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with you there, but I guess what I would say,
it says things that are factually and evidentially wrong. Like it says that rabbits and rock badgers chew cud. They simply don't.
It said what? Chews cud?
Rabbits and rock badgers chew cud.
Rabbits and rock badgers chew cud. Okay. So I think there are different types of writing in the Bible, right? So there's some of it that is considered like the moral law that is given, right? Stuff like the 10 Commandments. And then there are things that are written to Israelites living, in like 1000 BC or something like that, that is more of like a ritualistic law. And so I think it's important that you interpret scripture in the correct context. And so I think in order to, talk about the rabbits and badgers
chew cud in reality?
Well, no,
we're not talking about.
I think I would have.
We're not talking about whether or not the laws apply. We're talking about whether or not the claims about rock badgers and rabbits are true.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look into the context of, what is being spoken about here, right? Because I think one thing that maybe gets missed is that, we are, if we were trying to explain the way quantum mechanics works to an ant, there would be a lot that would be lost in translation, right?
Do we know that we need quantum mechanics for understanding what chewing cud means?
So by moving past my question, you're agreeing with it, right?
No, not at all. I'm asking a very simple thing, which is
I would
whether
agree
or not
that it's impossible to explain quantum mechanics to an ant.
Right, there'd be a lot lost in translation, right? Okay.
Well, as it happens, we know what biblical Hebrew is, and we can translate it, and we know what it means to chew cud, and rabbits and rock badgers don't do it.
I understand. I guess what I'm saying is that just in a way where to impart the smallest degree of meaning to this ant, right, about what quantum mechanics is, you're going to say a lot of things in ant that don't make sense to that ant.
Are you capable of knowing what chewing cud is?
I am capable of knowing what chewing cud is.
Okay, so then it's not quantum physics. Okay, so if you know what chewing cud is, and I know what chewing cud is, and God knows what chewing cud is, and God says that rock badgers and rabbits chew cud, but we know in fact that they don't, then somebody's wrong, and it's clearly the one making the claim.
Do we know for a fact that they never have? Do we know for a fact that
rock badgers can't even regurgitate? They lack the physiological ability to do so.
I mean, living today, but where are the biological
as it
studies
turns out,
on the rock badgers and rabbits?
It's just an old.
Justin, get rid of the guy again.
Oh, he's back.
Who keeps doing that?
Yeah, sorry.
It's so annoying. Do you see, Justin? Do you see my point? I think that
your point is now you believe in evolution.
No.
You think that rock badgers and rabbits used to chew cud and they evolved to have different stomachs, so now they don't chew cud?
I think that it seems to me a little bit flippant to reject the entire worldview based on rock badgers chewing cud.
Buddy, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay. Well, I want to get into the iceberg as well, but
so Michael, the point that's being made here is something like this, that when we find things that are just obviously not true, it becomes a lot harder to read the text as something that is coming from a perfect being. Because now we have to question, well, if that's not true, if they got that wrong, what else could be, even if God exists, what else could be a failure of interpretation? Could it be that Jesus didn't actually rise from the dead physically and that it was spiritual? Could it be that that the flood didn't actually happen globally, it was just a misinterpretation and that it only happened locally? Like then we really have to start questioning. And if we can't pin down what's actually coming from God and what's actually just being misinterpreted by man, we have some trouble with actually believing any of it.
So in order for you to believe in the existence of God, you would need a holy book with like perfection, like perfect evidence.
Well,
right?
Not quite. But if the claim is that God is perfect and described by the Christian Bible, then the Christian Bible better be correct. It better be trustworthy.
I think there's like there are aspects of my Bible that there's textual variance, right? Like we were talking a little bit earlier about how Scripture is formed, and there is a ton of textual variance between the different manuscripts that have been collected. But this textual variance is of like the 500,000 different examples of it you can find. About 1% of the time will it actually affect the meaning.
Well, that's
of
not
the
true.
text. Oh, I'm pretty sure that.
Yeah, you'd be wrong on that one. I've actually read the manuscripts.
I've read a few of them, like P51. Like I've read some of these manuscripts. I've looked into this. Mark, I think, is a.
Have you been through the Dead Sea Scrolls?
I haven't been through the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm not a scholar, right?
Okay.
I'm a small-time loan officer
who's
just trying to make ends meet.
I recommend reading the Dead Sea Scrolls in the original Hebrew. There are things that are way off. For example, in Deuteronomy, it says that the nations were apportioned according to the number of the sons of God. But in the Masoretic text, it says according to the number of the sons of Israel. Those are two very different things.
Right. No, I agree that there is some variance that is incorrect, right? That not all of the original manuscripts made its way to us, but these different pieces, right, where they do agree, where you can see that they're agreeing, I think inspires confidence that we do have the accurate works written by the disciples. Whether you believe they were lying when they wrote these things or not,
the disciples didn't write anything. The closest you'll get is Peter, and most scholars don't believe that Peter wrote Peter, but that's beside the point. The point that Dr. Blitz brought up, and I've been hammering home, is that when the Bible just says things that are untrue, that we have no reason to trust it, and it gets things wrong that it shouldn't get wrong. For example, do you have a Bible on you? Can you open Jeremiah 31?
Yeah.
By the way, we're not talking about things that the Bible gets wrong because of variance, like one variant gets it wrong, one variant gets it right. We're talking about things that all of the translations agree upon.
Right.
All of the versions agree upon.
What I guess my response to you is it possible that the Bible gets something wrong because it's speaking to a people who live in 1000 BC who don't. You couldn't say the things that like we're
only
saying
if
to
rock badgers
you.
And rabbits chew cud in 1000 BCE.
Maybe they did. I don't know that they did.
Okay, then you believe in evolution. Cool.
No, I believe that animals can.
Wait, Michael, do you believe in evolution?
Species over time,
Michael, do you believe in evolution?
31. What? So I guess I would accept microevolution, like evolution within species, but not so much that different species evolved from different organisms. Like humans from apes. Like I don't think I accept that.
Okay, I mean we can have that conversation. That's a conversation. That's a separate long conversation. So
okay.
We can just talk about the textuals.
Yeah, read Jeremiah 31, 15, and 16 for us.
15 and 16. So this is what the Lord says. A voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and great weeping, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. This is what the Lord says. Restrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work will be rewarded, declares the Lord. They will return from the land of the enemy.
Cool.
And they'll return from the land of the enemy.
Right. So you read Jeremiah, I presume. You know what he's talking about, right?
I in this context, I'm not sure what we're talking about. Maybe you could enlighten me.
Yeah, so Jeremiah is speaking of the Babylonian exile, which is why just a couple chapters prior, he says that they're going to be in exile for 70 years, and then they'll come back after 70 years of being in the Babylon, right? So he's comforting the mothers here, saying, I know you're crying because your children are being hauled away in exile, but it's okay. They're going to come back. So to me, the context is very clear here. Now, the problem with the passage is that if you go to Matthew chapter 2 and go down to verse 17 and 18, it talks about the babies in and around Bethlehem that were executed under Herod. And it says...
Then he went... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. So Matthew is exegeting the Old Testament and saying that it's talking about something that it's clearly not actually talking about. And this is the nature of all of the prophecies that I find in the New Testament. It's out of context, random quotations from the Old Testament. And this is the foundation that we're given for Jesus being the Messiah. And so if that's the foundation, then guess what? I'm not going in that house.
Yeah. Hey, I've never noticed this this passage before. I think that's interesting. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll see what I can. Maybe I'll come back and say, hey, you've got a great point, or maybe I'll have some sort of answer for you. But real quick question: are there any of these other premises that you reject? Like people not willingly dying for something they know to be false? Or...
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that premise assumes that they knew it was false and went to die, but they could just easily be deceived. And this, we know from history, happens. For example, the Parthian army literally believed that Nero resurrected from the dead. And they believed it so much that the Parthian army went to war with Rome, and they got their butts handed to them by the Roman armies because they thought the resurrected Nero was going to grant them the victory. They're going to walk into Rome and put Nero back on the throne, and it didn't turn out well for them.
So you do agree that people don't die for something they know to be false, but your point is that, I guess premise 5, that the disciples' belief in the truth of the gospel was based on their firsthand experience. You're saying not based on their experience, based on trickery? Or what?
Well, it certainly could be based on trickery. It could also be I like Paul Ogia's minimal witnesses theory, meaning one person had an episode where they believed to witness the resurrected Jesus, and then they told all of the disciples, and the disciples were willing to believe it. Or they had traumatic grief experiences that caused one or two of them to experience the resurrected Jesus, which is very common when you lose a loved one or when your cult falls apart. Or it's possible that the stories we know about the disciples aren't even true, because in the premise, you're smuggling in the concept that what we know about the disciples is actually true. And I don't know if I would even agree with that.
I think based on the sheer amount of manuscripts that have been discovered that far outnumber, like Herodotus, for example, right? Like we have I think it's more reasonable to conclude than not that we do have works that were influenced, written by, produced during the time.
But it's not an issue of manuscripts. It's an issue of truthfulness. Like we've got many manuscripts from the Iliad and the Odyssey. That doesn't make them true stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
no, you're right. I guess I tend to, believe that the people who wrote this and I guess it's sort of, to be honest, sort of the reason that I am accepting what they're writing, as probably true is based on the result that sprang from it. Right. So if Christianity had died off for 1,000 years after this and then been rediscovered, I'd be like, no, hold on. But the fact that Christianity endured for all this time and is still here today, but almost lends some credence to these things being true. But I don't know. That's not a well thought out.
Would you grant the same thing to Mormonism or to the Quran?
Mormonism is relatively new, isn't it?
So Christianity was new once.
Hinduism and Buddhism are older than Christianity.
Hinduism, Buddhism, older, and not widely practiced, or how wide? Do we know?
Hinduism has 1 billion practitioners.
Wow. Yeah. I guess and that's why that line of reasoning maybe isn't the best, because you'd have to grant. I see how you'd have to grant it to others that have stood the test of time as well. But okay, thank you. That's my argument. I came to it of my own free will. I wasn't duped into believing it. I hope you, Michael.
No, we believe you, Michael. We believe you.
So I'm glad Ian's gone because Ian hates when I do this, but I would suggest that you read the Gospel of Afranius, or sorry, Afranius. Just look up Gospel of Afranius.
Okay.
Don't
How
read
do
the
you spell
Wikipedia
that,
page.
by the way?
It's Afranius. Don't read the Wikipedia page. Just look up Gospel of Afranius PDF translation.
Okay.
And just read it. It's pretty short. I think that the second link, if you type that into Google, will give you a translation, an English translation, which was it was translated quite recently.
Okay, I will check it out. But okay, can I ask you guys some questions now? Now that you've tried to tear me apart, all of you.
Sure. Yeah.
We're on one. Oh wait. Okay. So I guess my first question is, do you guys recognize the problem of induction? Right. That just because we've empirically observed things in the past, right? That past performance doesn't really truly predict future performance, right? Yeah. And I could provide an example of that if it helps, but I think you know.
I'm just willing to accept that induction usually works.
Right. So would you say that all knowledge based on that fact is inherently somewhat faith-based?
No.
If you want to use faith to mean based off of some accepted axiom, sure.
Well,
I guess
you
if you want
to believe that the world will continue to behave tomorrow the way that it did yesterday.
Yeah, because we've tested
that. There's no
right. So
well, no, the point is Justin. The point is that we tested it yesterday, but we didn't test it tomorrow.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if we test something 1,000 times and it's consistent 1,000 times, it gives me reason to believe that it's going to be consistent for 1,001.
Yeah, I have an example of that. So, like a chicken who's born from an egg, right, can live its entire life, and every day the farmer comes, it brings him feed, right? So his experience tells him that it's absolutely true that the farmer brings food, right? Because of every single experience it's had, that's proven true. But then one day, the farmer brings an axe, right, and chops that chicken's head off. Like, there's no way he could have known what was going to happen. But that's the problem of induction, right? Is your past experience is not necessarily indicative of future experience, of future performance.
We don't apply like the induction you're applying to the chicken analogy is not the same as what we apply to like physics or to mechanics or anything like that, right? But we're talking about somebody making a decision to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's ability to make a decision to behave a particular way, I think, is different than whether or not gravity is going to be the same.
I suppose, I guess I see them as similar, right? Like I see that you wake up every morning believing that you won't float up to the ceiling, but you don't actually know that because you haven't tested it yet.
We test it every day.
You tested it yesterday, but today could be different. Today the laws of physics could reverse.
But gravity's not sentient.
So there is an issue, and this I do have to take Michael's side here. There is an issue of induction. The entirety of the scientific process grants that just grants the premise of scientific induction, or rather, scientific induction, that it works. It just grants it it just assumes it works, and then we go and do science. But if you throw that away, then you just can't do science at all. That's just a true statement. Like, it could be that tomorrow the sun will poof out of existence, and we can't, if you accept that induction works, that you can reason about tomorrow from past knowledge, then sure, it is true that it probably won't. But that's something that you have to grant. Definitely a thing.
And I guess my only point there is that, is it epistemology? Epistemology, right? We have to take everything on faith somewhat, right? Somewhat. So we're not so different. We just have faith in different things.
I don't think we would call it faith, though. That's what I'm saying.
Belief?
When we say faith, belief and faith are different. Like a belief is something that can be founded on evidence. Faith, you can have faith whether there's evidence or not. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess then I have belief in God because my belief in God is based on evidence. You might find that evidence very unconvincing, but to me, I find it convincing. So I would say that we both have belief and we're not that different. So that's my only point there.
Well, I do agree with you. Yeah, we both do have a belief, and you do have a reason for your belief. I think the question is whether or not that reason is compelling to others. And obviously, I think you nailed it. It's compelling to you, but it's not appealing to us.
Well, to my defense, though, it's compelling to a lot of people, lots and lots of people. I'm not alone.
Yeah,
in my
but slavery was compelling to lots and lots of people before like 150 years ago. So like
Well,
appeals
I'm
to
not
authority
trying to
isn't.
say it's morally good. I'm just saying I'm not.
No.
alone.
I'm just saying that like appeals to the majority, while appeals to the majority can feel rhetorically strong, they aren't particularly good evidence.
I agree. Can I ask another question, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I guess. Sure.
Okay, so do you believe in a purely physical world? So nothing metaphysical, nothing outside of what you would consider physical, right? Nothing spiritual, for example.
For me, basically, yes.
Yes. Okay. Everything that exists is physical. So then, in that scenario, do you still somehow prescribe free will and agency to human beings?
No, I'm a determinist.
You're a hard determinist.
Yep. Well, I'm a quantum determinist, which is slightly different, but it's close enough.
Close enough? Okay. So basically, us sitting here having this conversation, like, we didn't choose this. This is totally, like, this was determined
It was
at the
bound
moment
to
of
happen.
our birth, that you and I, Dr. Blitz, would meet here today.
Yes.
Right? That sounds pretty freaking magical to me. That sounds like destiny to me, Dr. Blitz.
It's just physics, bro.
I mean, but it sounds pretty freaking magical.
I mean, look, the alternative is that Michael, the alternative is that everything else in the universe obeys very strict laws. It's just the meat that the 3 pounds of meat in our heads exempt. That's the alternative. And that seems absurd to me.
There's something special about us, like we're part of.
Well, yeah. So you have to exempt the 3 pounds of meat in our head from the rest of the laws of physics that the rest of the universe follows.
But would you grant me that it would feel better to think that we are special?
Well, Michael, we have to also keep in mind the fact that like dogs and cats have free will too. Mm-hmm. So we certainly wouldn't attribute our pet's ability to decide as being like part of a spiritual system.
I don't know that I grant that dogs and cats have free will.
They can't choose? My cat can't choose to eat its food?
No, it just responds to stimuli based on its biology. Like,
so do you, Michael.
No, I am special. I am special.
Yeah, well, see, there's special pleading.
This is definitely special pleading, yeah.
I'm outright doing it, but I think, like, I would just want to ask you guys, would you agree that it would feel better to be special than it would to be a meatball flying through space with just enough intelligence to know that you've been thrown?
But I am special. My mom told me so.
Okay, well, Justin,
I'm sure she did, Justin.
Too. Your mom sounds like a smart lady, bro. Okay, last question for you. I'll let someone else go. Do you guys believe in objective morality? Which I think Dr. Blitz would say no.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, if everyone on this planet agreed that taking slaves, which is an example we've used many times, was right, then you would say it is in fact right to do that.
No.
That's the great thing about subjective morality is anyone can disagree with anybody else.
Okay, so nothing is good or evil.
I agree. There's no such thing. Yeah, there's no such thing as evil.
So taking slaves is not evil.
No, I wouldn't describe it as that. So
I would disagree with Justin on that, actually.
Yeah, I think it comes down.
Nothing is good or evil.
So it comes down to what you want to use with definitions. Well, good and evil don't belong. Hold on, good and evil don't belong in the same category. Good does have a definition subjectively that we can utilize. I don't know if evil does. I think evil typically implies a transcendental category. And so I don't use the word evil typically. But if we say that the word evil just means something that's bad or something that's wrong, then yeah, we could say that evil exists. But it depends on how you're going to use it.
Okay, so I just want to really quickly frame this argument. On one side, you can believe you're a meatball flying through space with no agency, and also nothing is evil, like everything is neither good nor evil. Or you can believe that you're a special person, that there's good in the world and there's evil in the world, and you want to do good.
Well, again, we need you to define what
I don't
you
think
mean
those
by
are
evil.
mutually.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I don't think that agency requires free will. I think agency just requires an internal experience.
I think of them as interchangeable, but I guess you could make an argument to refute that, right? I think.
I mean, it might just be a difference. It might just be a difference in terms. But when I think of an agent, I just think of something that has an experience, right?
Right. Well, and that's another interesting thing about if we could talk about the mind-body problem, the problem of experience, right? where does experience come from? What kind of
I don't
magical, physical? See, we don't know. So okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm not a psychologist or like a neurobiologist or whatever. So
I think we could, if we wanted to, if I could steelman their argument, I'd say it's an evolutionary process that developed to keep us from going insane, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. So,
but so getting back to the question of evil. So I don't think it's necessarily incompatible to say that determinists can have a definition of good and evil. So like I'm a determinist. I'm also like some sort of moral anti-realist or subjectivist or something like that. But the way that I define good, evil, bad, good, or what's the actual opposite of evil? Like virtuous?
The opposite of evil, I'd say, is good.
But the opposite of good is bad.
Right. That's why I say evil is inherently a spiritual, transcendental category for most people, which is why I don't use it.
But that's the thing, is that most people accept that evil exists. It's like pornography. You may not be able to define it so easily, but you know it when you see it, don't you? Evil when you see it, right?
I would just define evil as very bad.
Like, very bad. Okay, well, I'll stop using evil, and can we say good and bad? I'm okay.
Yeah. And so like, it's totally reasonable for someone like me to define good as those things which agree with my stances, and to define bad as those things that don't agree with my stances. And then I don't care at all if the entire rest of the world thinks that slavery is okay. It doesn't affect my stances. I mean, I might think that like, what's going on? I might like question myself, because that would be crazy, but still it wouldn't affect my stances. And so I would still say that's bad, even if everybody else thinks that it's fine.
So you do believe, regardless of what all of society and all of human nature and the human race history says, that some things are good, right?
The things that are good are the things that align with my views.
Yeah, they're subjective.
So you don't. Yeah, I guess that's just a weird.
And that's what everybody means, though, right?
Right.
People put their views on whatever God they believe in, but they never think that their views of what's good and evil doesn't agree with what God thinks is good and evil. Nobody ever thinks that.
So it's not. I'm sorry. So you're saying that there's. I'm sorry. I was like in the middle of like formulating a thought in my head, and then I started listening to what you were saying, and then
I'm sorry. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that. I guess your belief is that nothing is inherently good or evil. It's just I either agree with it or I don't.
Yep.
And I guess I would say then, can you define how something is? So you can't look at, if there's something that doesn't affect you, do you still get to prescribe a moral stance on it? Can you say that?
Maybe we can clarify this. Okay, so we believe that good and bad exist, but we're saying that it is a subjective terminology because we believe that morals are inherently subjective. If we're going to say
I think slavery is good,
I would say you're wrong. I would say you're wrong.
But that's fine. I'm not any more wrong than you are right.
Right.
No, you're no. I mean, I think Justin and I actually have different stances on morals here.
Wait, do you believe in objective morals, Dr. Blitz?
No, I don't.
Oh, neither do
but
I.
But I also don't accept. There's a type of anti-realism called agential anti-realism, or like agential subjectivism, where like it just depends on like the morality of an action depends on the morals of the person doing the action. I reject that. The way I take it is the morality of the action depends on what I view of the action.
So you're the God of the universe that determines all morality.
Well, I'm not a God. I'm just. It's just when I say good or evil, I'm specifically referring to my views, and when I hear good and evil, I interpret that through the lens of my views.
Right.
So nobody else's views matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If I brought a more, go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
But I'm saying all to say this. Well, we can say that something is good or bad. But you have to understand that this is a subjective terminology. We're saying I say it's good or bad. It's not to say that there's a transcendental category of good or bad that we're attaching to it,
right,
or that there's some objective moral law that we're appealing to. It is subjective.
Yeah, so if I don't think that murder is bad, then murder is not bad for me. And if most people don't think, I do. But I don't. But my morals don't come from what I like or dislike. That seems like a very shaky framework of like, oh, whatever I like is good, and whatever I dislike is bad. But So do the goodness or badness of things change as I change and grow?
Well,
So I
Yeah,
grow up murdering, but then I
absolutely
learn.
though.
But
Absolutely.
but Dr. Blitz, why would anyone ever change then? Right? So if you grow up and you're a child like soldier in Africa, right? And you murder people, right? But then all of a sudden, like, you get introduced to like people who are like, no, this isn't right. This isn't correct. Like, let me show you the light. You learn and grow and change as a person. You discover a higher, better sense of
Sure.
morality than the one that you've learned and been taught. So was that thing okay when you did it because you believed it was right? No, it was always wrong.
So
For
it
you
only
and for
depends on
others.
your stances when you're making the evaluation. So like if I think back to like, let's say that I was like a child soldier. I wasn't, but let's say that I was. If I make that evaluation now, it doesn't matter what my stances were 10 years ago or whatever, right? Or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It only matters when I make the evaluation now. And that, and this, the reason why this seems unintuitive is because if you're coming at this from a moral objectivist framework, like events, actions, processes, items are like have an inherent property of good or bad, right? Like the event of murder is inherently bad.
Regardless of who does it, for why. Yeah.
But if you reject moral objectivism, if you're a moral anti-realist, then these qualities of good and bad are not properties of the physical world. They are properties of minds, basically.
So why should your morality be enforced over anyone else's morality?
Well, because
why should we agree to live under a common morality, I guess?
Yeah, so if you don't, then you kill each other.
Well, if it's completely subjective, though, if we took your guys'
well, you don't have to
logical conclusion,
Michael,
right?
You don't have to. That's the thing. See, we agreed to live in a society where we can determine what we permit and what we don't permit. We agreed to do that. Now, some people would say that, I didn't agree to do that, but you kind of do if you're participating in the society because you can leave. So it's not that we're forcing you to live by our group, what our group thinks is right and wrong. You are at liberty to leave, but it just happens that people don't necessarily leave typically because overall they're typically okay with how things are.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the reason why we tend to form groups and we tend to try to come to agreement over which morality we all are convinced of is because that allows for strong societies, and strong societies are more, likely to survive than weaker societies are. If you have a community where everybody's fighting about, what's right, what's wrong, blah, 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 and, so much so that it causes the society to fall apart, then the neighboring society that's more coherent or more cohesive will just come and take them over, right?
Right. So people who have subscribed to objective moral truths have been more successful in cultivating civilizations, right?
No.
Yeah, that's why that idea is so sticky.
Yeah, because it's
but
why
it doesn't
these
make it true.
civilizations came to. I think we're both saying the same thing, but I'm saying we adopted these because they're true, and you're saying we adopted these because they were expedient and they worked.
Yeah,
because they have some level of utilitarianism.
Yeah.
But does having having utility doesn't make it true, though. For example, like you're just saying you don't like subjective morality. Because you don't like the way subjective morality works, then therefore objective morals. But that's not how that works. You would have to substantiate that objective morals exist before you can appeal to them.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it just feels kind of shallow to say everything I think is good and everything I think is bad, and that's just.
But you do think that, right?
There is no evil.
But you do think that, right?
What? No, I think that there are moral truths that I've yet to discover. Right? There are things I don't know about the morality of this universe.
Can you give me an example of something that you think is good that God thinks is bad, or vice versa?
No, because all of my good and bad statements come from God. That's my objective morality.
Well, so I would
disagree with that statement.
I would argue that your understanding of God's morality comes from your stances about morality. Because that's exactly what slavers did in the early 1800s in the United States. They imposed their view on what is right and what is wrong on their reading of the text, so that they could interpret God through that lens.
Right? Misinterpreted the text.
According to you, they did.
The text says
according to them, you are.
Now, so we're back to that. So I think that what I was trying to say earlier is that when a higher intelligence, a higher power, a higher being is trying to impart wisdom to people living in 1000 BC, right? The correct answer isn't just to say, okay, well, legalize, equalize gender roles and no slavery, and also,
Could he have said no
disinfectant.
slavery?
Here's how you mix it. No, I'm saying that wouldn't be the correct
Right, but could he have said it?
Could he have said it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have.
Would they have understood the words?
In wisdom, he knew that wasn't the best way.
Would they have understood the words if he had said it?
Would he have understood? Would they have understood the words? Yeah, they would have understood the word, and they would have been.
Did they understand that it's better to not own slaves than to own slaves?
What's that?
Could they have understood that it's better to not own slaves? Is that within their capabilities?
They could have understood that. What would have been the consequences of such an action?
Well, the consequences is they wouldn't have had slave, most likely, because.
But what would have happened to them?
Because we read in the text, God says, "Don't own slaves of your own fellow Hebrews," right? In Leviticus 25:39, it says, "If any who are dependent on you become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. They shall serve with you until the year of Jubilee. Then they and their children shall go out from your authority, and they shall go back to their own family and return to their ancestral property, for they are my servants who I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves are sold. You shall not rule over them with harshness, but you shall fear your God." Now, that's if you're Hebrew. Now, so he already said, don't own these people as slaves. So we know that that's in his vocabulary. We know that mankind is capable of comprehending it. In verse 44, though, it says, "As for the male and female slaves who you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families who are with you who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property." So he could have said, treat the foreigners the same way you treat the locals. Don't own them as slaves, but he didn't say that.
These people who were, murdering them and killing their children.
They weren't killing them.
Sacrificing their children to
none of that's
Baal,
true.
Yeah.
Nope.
What? Nope.
The nations,
the neighboring tribes of the Israelites didn't.
The neighboring. You don't know anything about the neighboring tribes of the Israelites.
What? And you do? Why don't you enlighten me?
I do, because I actually studied this. I have 2 degrees in biblical studies. So the neighboring tribes, can you name one of them?
Let's go with, what about the Moabites?
Yeah, the Moabites. That's the only biblical mention of child sacrifice.
Okay.
That's in 2 Kings. So.
It went from nothing I said is true to, you cherry picked the one example. So I think as someone who's a lot more educated on this, you could be a little bit more charitable and come from a place of...
Well, you misquoted me. I didn't say that nothing was true. What I said is...
You said nothing you said is true. Is that false?
Well, I
said, you didn't say that?
I said what you're saying about the foreigners is not true. Okay, so these
anyway,
people...
So let me ask you a question, Justin. So
we're not finished yet. So you're making statements that it's okay to own these people as slaves, and you don't know who these people are. In the actual text, it doesn't say who they are. It just says anybody, right? It says, from the nations around you, you may acquire male and female slaves. It didn't say which nations. It doesn't say why. It doesn't say if you go to war with them. It doesn't say any of that stuff. It just says you can acquire slaves from the other nations. So you want to make that smaller and say, no, it's actually from the nations that were bad. But that's not what the text says.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So if we took modern liberal sensibility, and can I just, are you liberal, by the way? It shouldn't matter, but are you guys both on the
I'm a socialist
spectrum?
I'm a liberal, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm further left than that.
Both left, very far left. Okay. So if we took, let's say we took your utopian worldview, right, of total egalitarian.
I want Star Trek.
Okay, no, you can't. It has to be with what we can produce right now, right?
Okay,
so
fine.
We give you a little chop zone, right, that you can produce your perfect society, and then we plop you down in 1000 BC, right? So you're this little community that believes in these egalitarian values and all of this, new age moralized thinking. What would happen to you guys? What would the rest?
Do we have modern
do
tech?
No.
Do we have modern tech? Okay.
You've got modern systems of governments. You've got.
Do I have modern knowledge? Because I know how to make a firearm.
You can make if you can make a firearm, maybe you rule the world.
I know how to. I've never done it, but I know the principles.
The process of metal refinery is beyond.
Are you insisting that slavery is a necessary component to surviving in the ancient world?
It depends. I don't know that, right? I don't know that for a fact.
Well, then if it was necessary, then why does God not want his own people to be enslaved?
But I think why does God not want his own? Because the process, what you're talking about to me, right, in the Old Testament, is the process of God slowly and carefully wooing his people away from these ideas.
That's interesting, because he didn't say that in the book at all. You've made that part up.
What? No, you might not find a verse where he says, "Here is what I am doing. This is my plan." But
how long does Deuteronomy say to follow the law for?
I don't know.
For all the days that you live on the earth, it said to give this to your children, for them to follow forever, so that it will go well with them. Because in doing so, you'll be doing what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. And it says in 2 places in Deuteronomy 4 and 12 to not even add anything or take anything away from this law code. Don't even touch it.
Yeah. So will you answer my question though, Justin? So what do you think would happen to people who were super liberalized living in the ancient world?
Well, this is a pivot from what we're actually talking about. What we're talking about is whether or not there's a reason why God allowed slavery. So
yeah, no, that's exactly why
my contention is that there's not a good reason why you need slavery, because in the book, God tells you there are some people that you're allowed to enslave and some people that you're not allowed to enslave. And it's really weird the way he picks and chooses, because in Exodus 21, even Hebrew women can be slaves. It says, if a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So you can just sell your daughter as a slave. She's not even part of the wicked nations that you're supposedly punishing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have degrees in biblical study. Obviously, I think you could be a little bit more charitable and
charitable to what?
Faith,
The Bible says you can own slaves, Michael. You can sell your daughter as a slave. The book is vile.
The book is written to a vile people living in a vile time, surrounded by things that are much more vile.
And God said to follow the laws forever.
In 2025. Can look back and pronounce judgment on all these people.
Michael, you left out one key ingredient there.
Is wrong.
You left out one key ingredient. It was written in a vile time for vile people by vile people.
Yeah.
That explains why the book says the things it says.
Yeah. Nah, see, I don't
like it makes a really neat explanation. I mean,
can you look up
consider
a study for me, maybe one of you,
sure,
from Ideological Differences in the Expanse of the Moral Circle by Adam Waitz, Waytz.
You want to read an article on the live stream?
Yeah, I found it.
You've got it. I just want your thoughts on it. Let me read the abstract. Chat me later. I don't mean to take up all your time. I've probably talked long enough. I appreciate the platform. Read that study and just tell me what that says to you. I'm really curious.
Okay, I can read the abstract now, or I can read it. Yeah.
And I'll let somebody else come along.
We're actually going to end it here because I have to run. But yeah, why don't we call it there? I'll take a look at the study, and if you want to come back next week, I'm sure that we'd be happy to take you.
So you guys do this weekly? Is there like a Discord?
Every week, every Sunday around 9 we started around 9 or 10 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, 9 or 10 Eastern Standard. Okay. Well, thank you once again, and
thanks for being here.
Good to hear from you, Michael.
Good to hear from you guys.
All right, cheers. Michael's a nice guy. I gave him a hard time. Judas, thank you for the $2 super chat. Blitz's patience is heavenly. I agree. Blitz's patience is heavenly, as is his ponytail. Let's see. I think that's our last super chat. Guys, thank you for all the super chats and the shares and the likes. And how come there's not a TikTok account for Blitz's ponytail yet?
There's a TikTok account for my mom, who's not that person's not actually my mom, but their account is Blitz's mom.
Oh, fantastic. All right, guys, we'll be back in a week and we'll do this all over again. Thank you so much for joining us. And I guess that's it. Any final words, Dr. Blitz?
Oh yeah, make sure to go follow Justin. Make sure to go follow myself. If you're watching on YouTube, read the description. It has my YouTube channel. It has Justin's YouTube channel. If you're watching on TikTok, go follow my account. I'm currently in the guest box somewhere around, I don't know, around here or something. And then also follow Justin because you're watching from Justin. And follow the Unapologetic live show account as well. So go do all of those things. And yeah, Justin, when are you live this week?
I'm actually going to be live tonight on the Atheist Experience, and then after that at 8 p.m. I'll be live for a little bit as well on my own channel. So,
and then what about the rest of the week? So where can people find you?
I'm going to be on Deconstruction Zone on YouTube and TikTok live Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Friday night and Sunday night per usual. So I have a standardized schedule, thank goodness.
Yeah, okay. Oh, also follow Ian. Ian's not here, but if you're watching on YouTube, Ian's stuff is in the description as well. I will be live. I do debate lives on Monday, Thursday, Friday. I do physics lives on Tuesday, Wednesday, so you should tune those in. Those will also be on YouTube and on TikTok. So, yeah, I think that's everything. I guess I should go eat dinner. You should probably go eat lunch or something like that, right?
Yep.
All right. I'll see you.